My phone lit up with Tommy's name, and for once, I wished my little brother would just leave me alone. But something in my gut told me this wasn't about his usual drama. His voice cracked before he even said hello. "Lucy, you need to come home." "It's Hannah." I gripped the edge of my desk, knuckles white against the polished mahogany. "What happened?" "Martha took her to that fancy salon in the city. They made her dye her hair platinum blonde. Cut it all off too. Said it would help her fit in better at the country club." The rage built slowly, like acid eating through metal. Hannah's beautiful auburn curls, my mother's curls, destroyed by that controlling witch. Put Hannah on the phone. She won't talk to anyone. Locked herself in her room. Derek's acting like it's no big deal, says she needs to learn to present herself properly. Tommy's voice dripped with disgust. You know how he gets when Martha starts pushing her agenda. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times Derek had sided with his mother over me. Over our daughter. She's 16 for God's sake. They had no right. That's not all, Tommy cut in. Martha's been talking about sending her to some fancy boarding school in Switzerland. Says she needs proper finishing. The pen in my other hand snapped, blue ink spreading across my quarterly marketing report like a bruise. The hell she will. What are you going to do? I stood up, already pulling up flight options on my computer. What I should have done 2 years ago when I left. I'm coming home to fight for my daughter. Derek won't like that. Derek can choke on his mother's silver spoon. I hit the purchase button for the next available flight. They want to play games with my daughter's life? Fine. But they're about to learn that I've gotten very, very good at strategy since I left. Tommy was quiet for a moment. You've changed, sis. No, I said, watching the confirmation email pop up. I've just stopped pretending to be someone I'm not. Tell Hannah to hold on. Tell her. I swallowed hard. Tell her mom's coming home. I ended the call and stared at my reflection in the office window. The city lights below seemed to pulse with the same fury coursing through my veins. Derek and Martha thought they could erase me from Hannah's life, mold her into their perfect little society puppet. They forgot one thing. I'd spent the last 2 years building brands and destroying competitors for a living. Time to put those skills to better use. The Bennett house loomed before me, its pristine white columns and manicured lawn a monument to Martha's obsession with appearances. 2 years away hadn't changed a thing, except maybe made it more suffocating. Tommy met me at the door, his face tight with worry. Derek's not home yet, but Martha's inside with Hannah. Perfect. I straightened my jacket, the same power suit I wore to demolish competitors in boardroom meetings. Time for a family reunion. The foyer still smelled of Martha's signature lemon polish, but the family photos lining the walls told a story. Every recent picture of Hannah showed her smile growing more strained, her poses more rigid. The latest one, taken at some country club event, might as well have been of a stranger. Martha's voice drifted from the sitting room. Really, Hannah? That attitude isn't becoming of a young lady. I rounded the corner, and there she was, my daughter, perched on the edge of an antique settee like a bird ready to flee. Her beautiful hair was now a harsh platinum blonde, cut in severe angles that made her look years older. Her eyes met mine, wide with shock. Mom. Martha whirled around, her perfectly lined lips thinning to nothing. Lucy. What an unexpected surprise. Funny how that happens when you mutilate my daughter's appearance without parental consent. I kept my voice level, professional. The same tone I used before destroying someone's career. I am her grandmother. You're nothing but a manipulative witch who's about to learn exactly how much damage I can do. I turned to Hannah. Go pack a bag, sweetheart. You're coming with me. Martha stood, smoothing her designer skirt. Derek has primary custody. You can't just watch me. I pulled out my phone, showing her the screen. I've spent 2 years documenting every violation of our custody agreement. Every time you've interfered with my visitation. Every manipulation. One call to my lawyer, and your precious reputation gets dragged through every court in the state. You wouldn't dare. But I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. Try me. Hannah, go pack. Hannah hesitated, looking between us. Dad won't like this. Your father stopped having a say when he let his mother turn you into her personal dress-up doll. The words came out sharper than intended. But I couldn't stop now. I'm done playing nice. This ends today. The front door slammed. Derek's voice boomed through the foyer. What the hell is going on here? I smiled. The same smile I gave competitors right before I crushed them. Perfect timing, Derek. We need to talk about our daughter's future and your mother's complete removal from it. The manila envelope landed on my hotel room desk with a dull thud. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Hannah at school events, dance recitals, family gatherings. 2 years of memories I should have been part of, all orchestrated by Martha. Each photo showed Hannah being molded, changed, stripped of everything that made her unique. But it was the last document that made my blood freeze. An application to Le Rosy, Switzerland's most prestigious boarding school. Already filled out. Already signed by Derek. My phone buzzed. Jenna's text read, "Found something else. Martha's been paying Hannah's therapist. The same one who's writing recommendation letters for the boarding school." I dialed Tommy. "I need you to get into Derek's home office." "Already did. There's more, Lucy. Remember that trust fund Mom left for Hannah? Martha's been acting as trustee. She's using it to fund this whole transformation project." The pieces clicked together like a poison puzzle. They're trying to erase every trace of me from Hannah's life. The hair, the clothes, the therapy. It's all about making her forget who she really is. "There's a board meeting at the country club tomorrow," Tommy said. "Martha's presenting her youth development initiative. All the society families will be there." Perfect. I pulled up my laptop, fingers flying over the keys. Time to show everyone exactly who Martha Bennett really is. A soft knock at my door made me pause. Hannah stood there, her platinum hair harsh under the hallway lights. "Mom? Can we talk?" I cleared the screen. "Always." She perched on the edge of the bed, twisting her hands. "Grandmother says you're trying to ruin everything. That you're jealous because Dad and I have a better life without you. Is that what you believe?" "I don't know what to believe anymore." Her voice cracked. "But I found something." She pulled out her phone, showing me a video. Martha and Derek in his office, their voices clear through the speaker. "Once she's in Switzerland, we can start fresh," Martha was saying. "No more of Lucy's common influence. Hannah will finally be the proper Bennett heir she was meant to be." "And if she refuses?" Derek asked. "She won't. The therapist has already diagnosed her with anxiety and depression. If necessary, we'll convince her it's for her own good. After all, what judge would argue with medical professionals?" Hannah's hands shook as she stopped the video. "They're trying to send me away." I pulled her close, feeling her tears soak into my shoulder. "No, they're not. Because tomorrow at that board meeting, your grandmother is going to learn what it really means to lose everything." I reached for my phone again, but Hannah grabbed my wrist. "Mom, wait. I want to help. I'm tired of being their puppet." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. Behind the manufactured exterior, I saw a fire in her eyes that Martha had never managed to extinguish. "My fire." "Okay," I said. "Let's show them what happens when you push a Bennett woman too far." The country club's mahogany-paneled boardroom felt like a trap closing in. I sat beside Hannah, watching Martha command the room with practiced ease, presenting her youth development initiative to Millbrook's elite. Every perfectly crafted slide showed smiling teens transformed into cookie-cutter society darlings. Hannah's before and after photos drew appreciative murmurs. My laptop hummed quietly, ready to broadcast the truth. One click would expose everything: the manipulated therapy records, the misused trust fund, the boarding school scheme. Hannah squeezed my hand under the table. Then Derek stepped up to the podium. "Before we continue, I have an announcement." He locked eyes with me. "Regarding recent allegations about my mother's involvement in Hannah's care." My finger hovered over the enter key. Something in his tone made me hesitate. "Lucy thinks she's protecting our daughter." He pulled out a folder. "But what my ex-wife hasn't shared is her own history of unstable behavior. Her documented episodes of paranoia, her tendency to manufacture conspiracies." The room went silent. Hannah's grip tightened. "I have here a psychological evaluation from 2 years ago, right before our divorce. It details Lucy's persistent delusions about family members plotting against her." He placed the papers on the table. "I've been protecting Hannah from this truth, but given recent events." The blood drained from my face. That evaluation. The one Martha's friend had insisted on during the divorce. The one I dismissed as another power play. Mom. Hannah whispered. Is that true? Martha's smile carried all the warmth of a shark. We only want what's best for Hannah. Luce's difficulties are precisely why the boarding school would be such a healthy environment. I reached for the laptop, but Derek wasn't finished. I'm filing for an emergency custody hearing. Given Lucy's deteriorating mental state and her attempts to disrupt Hannah's progress, we feel. Stop. Hannah stood up, her chair scraping against hardwood. Just stop. Sweetheart, Martha started. No. You want to talk about mental health? Let's talk about how you've been drugging me. The room collectively gasped. I froze, my revenge plan forgotten. Hannah pulled out an orange prescription bottle. I found these in my bathroom. Anxiety medication I never agreed to take. Grandmother's been crushing them into my morning smoothies for months. Derek's face went ash white. Mother. It was for her own good, Martha snapped. She was becoming difficult, just like her mother. I watched my daughter, my brilliant, brave daughter, face down the woman who'd tried to break her. And I realized my revenge wasn't what mattered anymore. This was Hannah's moment to reclaim her voice. And Martha's carefully constructed world was about to shatter. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Hannah's face as she gave her statement about the drugging. I watched through the window, my hands clenched around a paper cup of cold coffee, while Jenna worked her legal magic. Mrs. Bennett, we have a situation. Detective Morris appeared beside me, his expression grim. Your daughter's toxicology report shows more than just anxiety medication. There were traces of stronger psychiatric drugs, the kind typically used for severe personality disorders. The cup crumpled in my grip. What? Martha Bennett's been arrested, but she's already posted bail. And she's talking. He slid a document across the table. Claims you've been coaching Hannah to make false accusations. Says she has proof you've been planning this for months. My phone buzzed. A text from Tommy, Derek's cleaning out the trust fund. All of it. Right now. Another buzz. An email from Hannah's school. She'd been withdrawn, effective immediately. Transfer papers already processed for Lou Rosie. Mom. Hannah emerged from the interview room, looking smaller than her 16 years. Dad's here. Derek strode in, flanked by 2 lawyers. His face was carved from stone. Hannah, get your things. We're leaving. She's not going anywhere, I started, but Detective Morris caught my arm. Actually, Mrs. Bennett, given the current allegations and Mr. Bennett's primary custody, you can't be serious. I turned to Hannah. Tell them everything. But Hannah stood frozen, looking between us with terror in her eyes. I can't remember exactly what happened anymore. Everything's so confused. One of Derek's lawyers stepped forward. The trauma of being manipulated by her mother has clearly affected the child's ability to distinguish fact from fiction. We'll be filing for a psychiatric evaluation. What have you done to her? I lunged toward Derek, but Jenna caught me. Lucy, stop. This is exactly what they want. Hannah's voice cracked. Maybe I should just go to Switzerland. Start fresh. No. The word came out like broken glass. I won't let them. Let them what? Derek's voice cut like a whip. Protect our daughter from your obsessive need for revenge? Face it, Lucy. You're so focused on destroying us. You can't see you're the one destroying her. I looked at Hannah, really looked at her. The dark circles under her eyes. The way she seemed to fold in on herself. The fear when she glanced at me. What was I doing? 48 hours, Derek said. That's how long you have to drop everything. The accusations, the custody fight, all of it. Or I'll make sure you never see her again. He turned to leave, but paused. And Lucy? Mother sends her regards. The pharmacy records arrived at midnight, delivered by a nervous-looking intern from Jenna's law firm. 2 years of prescriptions, all written by Dr. Eleanor Price, Martha's closest friend and Hannah's supposed therapist. I spread them across my hotel room floor, building a timeline of chemical manipulation. Anxiety meds escalating to antipsychotics. Mood stabilizers increasing in dosage. Each prescription perfectly timed to coincide with Hannah showing any sign of independence. My phone lit up. Hannah's number. Mom. Her voice was barely a whisper. I remember something. About the pills. I'm listening. Grandmother. She said they were vitamins at first. But I started feeling strange. Foggy. When I questioned it, she told everyone I was having episodes. Like you. A knock at my door made me freeze. Through the peephole, I saw Derek standing there alone. Hannah, hold on. She's not on the phone. Derek's voice came through both the door and my phone. She's here with me. Aren't you, sweetheart? The call ended. I yanked the door open. Derek stood there, holding Hannah's phone, his expression unreadable. We need to talk. Where is she? Safe. With Mother. Preparing for her flight tomorrow morning. My chest tightened. You're really going to send her away? Unless you sign these. He pulled out a stack of papers. Full custody surrender. Public retraction of all accusations. A gag order preventing you from contacting Hannah until she's 21. You can't. I can. And I will. He stepped closer. You know what's funny? I actually believed you at first, about Mother going too far. But then I remembered you always did this. Turned everything into a conspiracy. Made everyone else the villain. The prescriptions were necessary because you made her like you. Paranoid. Unstable. His voice softened. Sign the papers, Lucy. Let her have a normal life. I looked down at the pharmacy records. At the progression of drugs designed to make a teenage girl doubt her own mind. Just like they'd done to me during the divorce. No. Derek's face hardened. Then I'll see you in court. Where Mother's friend Dr. Price will testify about your history of mental illness and your campaign of parental alienation. Where every judge and social worker will see exactly who the real threat to Hannah is. He dropped the papers at my feet. You have until dawn. Choose wisely. The door clicked shut behind him. I stared at the scattered prescriptions, each one a link in the chain they'd built around my daughter. Around me. They'd planned this from the beginning. Every move. Every accusation. Every pill. And now I had to choose. Fight and lose Hannah forever, or surrender and let them win. Dawn was coming. I walked into Martha's pristine living room at exactly dawn, custody papers in hand. Derek stood by the fireplace. Martha perched on her favorite armchair like a queen on her throne. No Hannah in sight. The papers. Derek held out his hand. I pulled out a pen. First, I want to see her. Sign them. Martha's voice carried the weight of victory. Then you can say goodbye. My hand hovered over the signature line. You know, I spent all night thinking about what you said, Derek. About me making everyone the villain. I clicked the pen. Then I remembered something important about villains. Just sign the damn papers, Lucy. They always keep trophies. I dropped the papers and pulled out my phone, hitting play. Martha's voice filled the room. The trust fund transfers are complete. Once she's in Switzerland, increase the dosage. Dr. Price assures me it will make her quite manageable. Derek's face went slack. Mother. It's obviously doctored, Martha snapped, but her hands gripped the armchair tight enough to whiten her knuckles. The police have the original, along with Dr. Price's full confession. I smiled. She folded surprisingly fast when faced with losing her medical license. Turns out she's been writing illegal prescriptions for years. For you, Martha. You're lying. Check your phone, Derek. The evidence is in your email. Every prescription. Every bank transfer. Every conversation about turning Hannah into a proper Benedict, just like they tried to do to me. Derek pulled out his phone, color draining from his face as he scrolled. You don't understand, Martha stood, mask finally cracking. She's just like her mother. Wild. Uncontrollable. I had to. Had to what? Hannah's voice cut through the room. She stepped out from behind the study door, Tommy beside her. Drug me? Erase me. Hannah, Derek breathed. I didn't know. Yes, you did. Hannah's voice shook. You just didn't want to see it. Because then you'd have to admit what she did to Mom. What you let her do to both of us. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Martha lunged for her purse, but Tommy blocked her path. Going somewhere, grandmother? Maybe to destroy more evidence. I did everything for this family, Martha hissed. Everything to maintain our standing, our reputation. Your control, I finished. But you forgot something crucial about reputations, Martha. They're my specialty. The front door burst open as police officers flooded in. Through the chaos, Hannah crossed to stand beside me. Her platinum hair was already showing auburn roots. Let's go home, Mom. Derek stepped forward. Hannah, please. No, Dad. She didn't look back. I'm done being anyone's proper Benedere. We walked out together, leaving Martha's perfect world crumbling behind us. Hannah's auburn curls caught the morning light as she painted broad strokes across the canvas, her art studio taking shape in what used to be Martha's formal dining room. The irony wasn't lost on me. This room had once been reserved for proper society luncheons and carefully orchestrated appearances. The doorbell rang. Derek stood on the porch, holding a familiar wooden box. Hannah's baby photos, he said. Found them in Mother's things while cleaning out her house. I took the box but didn't invite him in. Through the window, I could see Hannah watching us, paintbrush frozen mid-stroke. The board voted. Derek continued. I'm stepping down from the foundation. Seems Mother's influence went deeper than anyone knew. Dr. Price implicated half the town's elite in her prescription scheme. Karma's funny that way. He shifted, uncomfortable in his tailored suit. Lucy, about what happened. Don't. The word came out sharper than intended. You don't get to rewrite this story. I'm not trying to. He pulled out an envelope. Hannah's trust fund. The real one from your mother. Untouched. She should have it. I studied his face, the new lines around his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands. Martha's sentencing is next week. I know. I'm not going. He glanced past me to Hannah's studio. Some chains need to be broken. The envelope felt heavy in my hands. Through the window, Hannah had resumed painting, her strokes bold and unfettered, just like her grandmother, my mother, would have wanted. She's happy, I said. Free. Because of you. Derek turned to leave, then paused. I found Mother's journals. The things she wrote about controlling me, about making me the perfect son. I should have seen it sooner. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He straightened his tie, a nervous habit from childhood. Tell Hannah. Tell her I'm getting help. Really getting help this time. I watched him walk away. This man I'd once loved, once hated. Now just another person struggling to break free from Martha's perfectly constructed cage. Inside, Hannah had added splashes of defiant red to her canvas. Was that Dad? Yes. She nodded, continuing to paint. Think he'll ever understand what they did to us? I opened the wooden box, spreading out photos of a younger Hannah. Before Martha's influence, before the pressure to be perfect. A wild-haired girl with my mother's laugh in my spirit. Maybe. But that's his journey now, not ours. Hannah dipped her brush in paint the color of freedom. Good. Because I've got better things to paint than other people's expectations. I placed her baby photos on the windowsill, facing the rising sun. Some chains do need to be broken. But some bonds, the real ones, grow stronger for having been tested by fire.
I had just finished drafting the divorce papers when my husband, Joseph, sneered at me with a provocative edge. Packer, think fast and get out of my house, he said, his tone dripping with disdain. His mistress, Linda, stood beside him, gazing dreamily around the room. Wow, all this high-end brand furniture, how lovely. This house suits me perfectly, she commented, her voice full of admiration. I winced at her words and reminded Joseph, just so you know, I'm taking all my personal belongings with me when I move out. Sure, Joseph said, trying to stifle a laugh. If your things were left behind, they'd just be a reminder of the miserable days we've had. It was clear he still didn't grasp the full meaning of my statement. Just wait, I hope you don't end up regretting this. My name is Karen, I'm a 26-year-old interior coordinator, and my husband, Joseph, is 31 and works in construction. We met through our shared passion for DIY projects and had a brief, 3-year marriage. While we once cared deeply for each other, I'm now relieved we didn't have children. Joseph has become increasingly self-indulgent. He comes home, tosses his coat aside, eats the meals I've prepared while complaining, and retreats to his room without lifting a finger to help. Before we married, we had agreed to share household chores equally. However, I now find myself doing almost all the housework. When I pointed this out to Joseph, he dismissively said, "Housework is easy. It's natural for women to handle it. Men should focus on their work, so I don't want to do it." This rigid attitude, which he never expressed before our marriage, has become a major issue. The fact that I earn more than he does has only fueled his resentment. By my age, I had planned to be financially independent and to increase my earnings further. Joseph, on the other hand, has been careless with money, putting only the bare minimum into our household and spending the rest freely. Despite my repeated warnings, he refused to change his ways. "My hard-earned money. How greedy can you be to want even more?" he would complain. To make matters worse, he exaggerated my frugality to his coworkers, painting me as a miser and seeking their sympathy. It was his reckless spending and the turmoil at home that drew Linda, a 24-year-old temporary employee at his company. With a few younger men around and Joseph being 31, it's no surprise she was attracted to him. "Oh, Joseph, if I had a handsome husband like you, I'd take care of him forever," Linda cooed, her flattery quickly ensnaring Joseph. "I discovered the affair about 6 months ago, right when it began." One day, an unknown number called Joseph's phone, and after searching for the name on social media, I found Linda. She had posted, "Date night with my future husband at a fancy restaurant. I'm so nervous, it's our first time," alongside several photos of Joseph. I saved the photos and retrieved their messages from Joseph's phone. The dates, conversations, and locations they mentioned left no doubt, he was cheating. When I learned of the infidelity, I wasn't angry or sad. I felt a deep emptiness. I understood that being lectured after a long day wasn't ideal, but those discussions were meant to build our future. Perhaps my expectations were too high, but after just 3 years, to betray our commitment seemed unforgivable. I sighed deeply, knowing I couldn't let myself be overwhelmed. I had worked hard, believing in compromise, but I couldn't tolerate the cheating any longer. It was time to get a divorce. I began searching for a lawyer to help end my marriage with Joseph. A month later, on a Saturday, I arranged a meeting with both Joseph and Linda. They were visibly shocked. I'm sure they never expected me to uncover the affair. Linda, however, seemed almost exhilarated by the prospect of their future together. She neither apologized nor offered any justification for their actions. Instead, she said, "Karen, are you truly okay with the unprecedented compensation?" "I'm thrilled." I responded calmly, "Yes, Joseph and I agreed before marriage not to divide our assets." At that moment, Linda and Joseph held hands, celebrating their apparent victory. Joseph and I discussed what would happen in the event of a divorce. In exchange for not dividing the assets, my compensation is minimal. I was working too, so I didn't mind. But what I can't accept is the complete lack of remorse for the affair. Linda gushed about the stylish house filled with high-end brands and the latest appliances. "It's just perfect for me," she said. I felt a pang of something strange as I handed over the divorce papers. I reiterated to Joseph, during our marriage, there was no division of the items I bought. "I'm taking all my personal belongings with me. You understand that, right?" Joseph, seemingly confused, took a moment before responding, "It's clear that your plain clothes and bags wouldn't suit young Linda anyway. I need to buy her better things. If your belongings remain, they'll only serve as a reminder of the painful days we had together." It seemed Joseph had misunderstood, thinking I was referring to personal items like clothing. It was easier to let him continue thinking that than to start an argument. "Tomorrow, the movers will be here to take everything, so be prepared," I said. Joseph and Linda were already ignoring me, distracted by the house's interior. Clearly, Joseph didn't grasp what "no division of property" meant, but that wasn't my concern. "Enjoy the house while you can. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's move." The next morning, they came to usher me out, clearly eager for me to leave. I ignored them and waited for the moving company's arrival. Right on schedule, a large truck pulled up. The workers greeted me enthusiastically, "Thank you for choosing us today. We have another truck nearby, so don't worry." Linda approached me, her expression clouded with confusion. "Do you have that many personal belongings?" I stifled a laugh and replied, "The house belongs to Joseph, but all the appliances and furniture are mine. Remember, we agreed there would be no division of property," I added. At that, Joseph's face turned bright red as he rushed over to me. "All the furniture and appliances are mine. They've been here for 3 years. Just take your stuff and leave quickly." I couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. It became clear Joseph really didn't understand what "no division of property" meant. Just because the furniture had been in the house for a few years didn't make it his. I couldn't help but laugh at his confusion. Hey, you're not really planning to take everything, are you? Joseph asked, his voice dropping as if he were trying to calm himself. Meanwhile, the movers continued their work, steadily transporting the furniture out. Don't worry, I'm just taking the memories of living with you, I replied. Panicked, Joseph dashed to the study, where I kept copies of all the receipts. He was probably checking which pieces of furniture were being taken. His search was futile, not a single piece of furniture or appliance in the house belonged to him. Joseph had inherited the house from his parents, who used it as a rental property. Not wanting to spend on his personal life, he had furnished it with second-hand items. When we married, Joseph discarded all his old furniture, and I bought new, high-end furnishings and appliances. As an interior coordinator, I was meticulous about design. After numerous adjustments, I arranged the upscale furniture to create a visually stunning space. It was far from the second-hand look Joseph's previous furniture had. Linda seemed enchanted by the elegant setting. Joseph returned with a pale face, only to find the house already spotless after the removal. Linda was screaming, "This is awful. I can't believe this is happening." A worker looked around, concerned. "The house is empty now. Are you sure this is okay?" "It's fine," I said. "Since I'm moving out, it's no problem. I paid for everything with my own money. Please deliver it to my parents' new house." The workers hopped into the truck and drove off briskly. "Hey, I didn't know about this. What are you going to do now?" Linda's anger flared as she approached me. At that moment, a cart arrived from behind, startling her. "Wait, who's coming now? What are you plotting?" she demanded, looking bewildered. "Karen, it's been a while. Is it true you're giving me the wallpaper?" A friend of mine emerged from the car. "That's right, the wallpaper too," I confirmed. It had been custom made by a designer I knew through work. I had paid for it to be completely replaced, so even the wallpaper was my personal property. Since the wallpaper could be reused with some maintenance and resizing, it was in perfect condition for use elsewhere. You're actually going to peel off the wallpaper too?" Linda stared at me in disbelief, but my friend just shrugged and began removing it. "Please, can you at least leave that alone?" Joseph pleaded, but I ignored him. "If you see any of my personal belongings left behind, it will just remind you of me, and I know that's unpleasant. That's why I decided to give it all to my friend." Joseph was left confused and panicked. Replacing all the wallpaper in the house would cost at least $5,000, and with new furniture needed as well, it was bound to be a significant expense. I had ensured that every piece of tasteful furniture and appliance was removed, and even the wallpaper was taken down. Now the house looked older than its years. For Joseph and Linda, who had dreamed of enjoying a beautifully decorated home, this was an unbearable reality. They seemed too stunned to even complain. After waving goodbye to my friend as she collected the wallpaper, I got into my car. "Well, this is goodbye. Farewell," I said casually to the two of them and left the empty house behind. Later, I used the furniture and appliances in my new home but soon grew tired of them. Knowing Joseph had used them, I contacted a friend who was a buyer to sell them. Fortunately, they were in excellent condition, and I managed to sell them for a higher price than expected. As I pondered what new furniture to buy and where to place it, I received a call from Joseph after a long time. "Linda won't stop complaining about how you arrange the furniture. Come over and take a look." Though I wasn't keen on meeting them, my curiosity as an interior coordinator got the better of me. I was eager to see what kind of furniture they had bought and what their new design looked like. "All right, I'll come just to see what you have to say." "Really? Remember, you promised," Joseph said with apparent relief before hanging up. On the day I visited, I was stunned by what I saw. They hadn't even re-wallpapered the house and had furnished it with clearly second-hand items from thrift stores. The place looked like a cheap student apartment. A whole month had passed since our split, and their efforts were shockingly inadequate. "What is this? This goes beyond a design issue." I was at a loss for words. Linda, perceiving this as an insult, erupted in anger. "We gathered this stuff just to get by for now. We'll replace it soon. Since you took everything, use your connections or whatever to make this a house we can brag about to our friends," Linda said, clearly frustrated with their second-hand surroundings. She was irritable throughout our conversation, even asking about the budget. It wasn't nearly enough to cover my fees. "What's this? You're a talented coordinator, but you can't do anything with this budget. You're useless," Linda snapped at me, clearly agitated. No matter how skilled a coordinator is, they can't work miracles with such a limited budget. "This is beyond connections," I explained, feeling exasperated. Linda seemed serious about having me arrange high-end furniture and appliances on a shoestring budget. Frustration boiled over, and Linda began to lose her temper. This is absurd. Did you come here just to look down on me? If you don't like it, leave. But if you want to furnish your home on that budget, you need to improve your interior sense. Don't get so overconfident just because you have a somewhat fashionable job. Hey, stop it, Joseph intervened, looking weary. Joseph, say something to her, Linda demanded. Just stop it, both of you. Linda, please be quiet, I'm sorry for the noise. I had to marry Linda, but as you can see, she's always angry, and it's tough every day, Joseph admitted, his voice tired. It turned out that after I left, they had a huge fight in their now empty house. Linda had quit her job and not informed her parents of the marriage, leaving her without a place to go. Joseph confessed that he had married Linda out of compromise to have someone take care of the housework, but it was a doomed arrangement from the start, leading to their quick disillusionment. Please, Karen, help me fix our relationship, Joseph begged. I was clearly annoyed. What is this, planning to cheat on me next? No, the thing with Linda was just a temporary confusion. After you left, I realized there's no one more wonderful than you. Karen, you're not serious, are you? I realized I had raised my voice. You're the one who told me to leave the house, right? I divorced you just as you wanted. Don't expect me to change my mind now. Please, Karen, don't address me so casually. This rundown house is your chosen castle with your affair partner. You two should get along together. Wait, Karen. Joseph's pleas were ignored as I quickly left the house. It wasn't worth satisfying my curiosity about their downfall. It was a life lesson learned, I thought to myself. Later, I heard that Joseph and Linda begged their parents to help with the cost of new furniture and appliances but were disowned by both sides. Neither set of parents was willing to assist, let alone forgive them for marrying after an affair. So, they continued to live in that second-hand house. I couldn't muster any sympathy for them. It was the result of their own actions. As for me, I recently met a male interior designer through work. We've been spending quite a bit of time together on weekends. I've been cautious about dating, but maybe it's time to consider starting a new chapter. With that thought in mind, I'm off on another date today. Hi, I'm Melissa, and before we dive into this wild story, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss what's coming. Let me tell you a bit about myself first. I'm a 38-year-old single mom, working as a paralegal to give my daughter, Allison, the best life possible. It's been just the two of us ever since my ex, Jack, bailed on fatherhood when Allison was 5. Now, she's 17 and the absolute light of my life. She's smart, kind, and as beautiful inside as she is out. When Allison told me she'd been asked to prom, I was beyond excited. Mom, Tyler asked me to prom, she squealed after school one day. I hugged her tight and said, "That's fantastic, sweetheart, we've got to find you the perfect dress." Little did I know, that dress would bring more drama than I could have ever imagined. Here's the catch, my ex-mother-in-law, Barbara, and my ex-sister-in-law, Karen, are still in our lives. Why? Well, it's complicated, but let's just say they're about as fun as a root canal without anesthesia. At our monthly family dinner, when Allison mentioned prom, their reactions were priceless. Barbara pursed her lips and said, "Prom? Isn't that a little frivolous?" Karen jumped in with, "Yeah, shouldn't you be more focused on college applications?" I bit my tongue, but Allison, bless her, held her ground. "I can do both, Aunt Karen. I'm really excited about prom." The tension in the room could have been cut with a knife, thicker than Barbara's infamous meatloaf. Fast forward to dress shopping, and Allison found this stunning blue gown that made her eyes light up. "Mom, it's perfect," she gushed. I checked the price tag and, well, let's just say it wasn't cheap, but seeing her so happy, I knew it was worth it. "You're going to be the belle of the ball," I smiled, swiping my card. When we showed Barbara and Karen the dress, their reactions were not ideal. Barbara wrinkled her nose. "Don't you think it's a little revealing?" Karen added, "And that color, it's not really your best, Allison." I saw Allison's excitement fade, and it took everything in me to keep my cool. "I think she looks stunning," I said, my voice firm. In the weeks leading up to prom, Allison was caught up in all the excitement, talking about corsages, limos, and after parties with her friends, but whenever Barbara or Karen were around, they couldn't help but throw in their 2 cents. "Are you really going to wear heels? You'll be taller than poor Tyler," Karen would say. Or Barbara would add, "I hope you're not planning on staying out all night." I tried my best to shield Allison from their constant negativity, but I could see it was starting to wear on her. The night before prom, Allison was buzzing with a mix of nerves and excitement. We were deep into last-minute preparations, nails, hair, you name it. Mom, what if something goes wrong? Allison asked, her voice trembling slightly. I squeezed her hand and smiled. Nothing's going to go wrong. Tomorrow is going to be perfect, I promise. As I carefully hung up her beautiful blue dress, ensuring every inch was wrinkle-free, I had no idea just how wrong I was. Sometimes, the people you trust are the ones you need to be most wary of. I realized I needed to run to the store for some last-minute essentials, hairspray, bobby pins, the usual prom night supplies. Barbara and Karen, in an unusual display of kindness, offered to come over and help Allison with a few final touches. That's really thoughtful of you, I said, surprised by their sudden enthusiasm. As they headed upstairs with Allison, I ignored the nagging feeling in my gut that something was off. Maybe they were finally warming up, I thought, but that decision to leave would lead to a night I'd never forget, and not in the way I had hoped. I rushed back from the store, eager to surprise Allison with her favorite snacks for our little pre-prom celebration. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Barbara and Karen's cars were still parked out front. Strange, they were supposed to be gone by now. When I stepped inside, I heard hushed voices upstairs, and the unmistakable snip of scissors. A sudden chill ran down my spine. My heart pounded as I tiptoed up the stairs, each step filled with dread. When I reached Allison's room and pushed the door open, nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. There, in the center of the room, were Barbara and Karen, scissors in hand, surrounded by shredded pieces of blue fabric. Allison's gorgeous prom dress lay in tatters across the bed. What the hell are you doing? I yelled, my shopping bags hitting the floor with a thud. Barbara and Karen spun around, their faces drained of color. Melissa, we were just, Karen stuttered, unable to finish. Just what? Destroying my daughter's dress? Have you completely lost it? My hands shook with fury. Barbara stepped forward, her chin held high, as if she had any right to justify this. We're doing what's best for Allison. That dress was inappropriate, she said without a hint of remorse. Inappropriate? It's a prom dress, not something from a nightclub. I could barely contain my disbelief. Karen chimed in, trying to sound reasonable. We were only trying to protect her reputation. You just wouldn't understand. Suddenly, it all clicked. The judgmental comments about my parenting, the accidental spills on Allison's favorite clothes, the times they'd conveniently left her waiting at school. This wasn't about protecting her. It was about control. The pieces fell into place, and I realized they had been undermining us all along. You've always been jealous, I realized aloud. The pieces finally falling into place. You can't stand to see Allison happy. Barbara scoffed, dismissive. Don't be ridiculous. We love Allison. Love? This isn't love. This is control. Manipulation. I shot back, my voice trembling with anger. At that moment, a soft gasp came from the doorway. Allison stood there, her face pale, eyes wide in disbelief as she took in the destruction of her dress. My dress, she whispered, tears already welling up in her eyes. I rushed to her side, wrapping her in a tight hug. Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry, I whispered, my heart breaking as she started to sob. Why? Allison cried, her voice cracking. Why would they do this? Grandma? Aunt Karen? How could you? Barbara had the nerve to look indignant. We were trying to help. Dear, that dress was far too revealing for a young girl. Get out, I growled, my voice low, simmering with fury. Get out of my house, now. Karen tried to interject, but we were just out, I roared, pointing sharply toward the door. They exchanged a glance but didn't argue. As they hurried out, I turned my full attention back to Allison, still trembling in my arms. What am I going to do, Mom? She asked through tears. Prom's tomorrow, and my dress is ruined. I held her tighter, my mind racing for a solution. How could I fix this? The dress shops were all closed for the night. We'll figure it out, sweetie, I reassured her, though I had no idea how. But I wasn't about to let her dream night be ruined. Not by them, not by anyone. I promise, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt, as I held my heartbroken daughter. Only one thing was clear. Barbara and Karen had crossed a line they couldn't come back from. This wasn't just about a ruined dress anymore, it was about years of manipulation. But first, I had to solve the most pressing issue, producing a prom dress in less than 24 hours. Talk about a mother's worst nightmare. Once Allison finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying, I sat at the kitchen table, my mind racing. This wasn't just an isolated incident, it was the culmination of years of subtle cruelty. I grabbed my phone and called Jack, my ex. We need to talk. It's about Allison. 30 minutes later, Jack was standing at my door, concern etched across his face. What's going on, Melissa? I didn't hold back. I told him everything that had happened, and as I spoke, I watched his expression darken. I can't believe my own mother and sister would do something like this, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. Believe it, I said grimly, and it's not just this. Remember when Allison didn't get invited to Karen's kids' birthday parties? Or the time Barbara accidentally spilled wine on her graduation dress? Jack's eyes widened. You think all that was intentional? I know it was, and we're going to prove it. For the next few hours, we called friends and family, connecting the dots on Barbara and Karen's years of toxic behavior. The stories came pouring in. My friend Lisa reminded me, remember when Barbara told everyone Allison cheated on that math test? I knew something was off. Jack's cousin Tom added, Karen once told me Allison was spreading rumors about my daughter. I always had my doubts, but I didn't want to cause drama. By the time the sun came up, we had a long list of incidents spanning years. It was time to take action. I called up my old college roommate, Sarah, a high-powered lawyer. Sarah, I need your help. We met at a cafe, where I laid out everything we had gathered. After listening intently, Sarah let out a low whistle. This is some heavy stuff, Melissa. We're looking at harassment, defamation, and now with the dress, destruction of property. What can we do? I asked, desperate for a solution. Legally, we could pursue charges, Sarah said thoughtfully, but given its family, there might be a more impactful way to handle this. That's when an idea struck me. The annual family reunion was just 2 weeks away, and everyone would be there. Sarah, what if we expose them in front of the entire family? A slow, approving smile spread across Sarah's face. Now that's a plan I can get behind. Let's make it happen. Over the next few days, while juggling prom preparations for Allison, thank goodness for 24-hour tailors and my emergency credit card, we set our plan in motion. We gathered all our evidence, photos, text message screenshots, and even security camera footage showing Barbara and Karen with the ruined dress. Jack reached out to extended family members, subtly ensuring their attendance at the reunion. Lisa helped us assemble a compelling slideshow, and Tom volunteered to handle the tech side of things. We need to make sure they can't wriggle out of this, I emphasized during one of our strategy sessions. Sarah agreed. I've drafted a statement outlining their actions. We'll hand it out to everyone after the presentation. As the day of the reunion approached, a mix of nervousness and resolve settled over me. Barbara and Karen had no clue what was coming. The night before the reunion, Allison voiced her concerns. Mom, are you sure about this? It feels pretty intense. I wrapped her in a reassuring hug. Sweetie, sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even when they're family, especially when they're family. Jack added his support. Your mom's right, Allison. What they did to you was wrong, and it's time everyone knew the truth. Allison nodded, her trust in us clear. Okay, I trust you guys. As I laid out my outfit for the reunion, I took a deep breath. Tomorrow, everything would change. Barbara and Karen thought they could manipulate and hurt us without facing the consequences. They were about to find out how wrong they were. Ready for tomorrow? Jack asked as he headed out. I nodded, determination shining in my eyes. More than ready. It's time to put an end to this. Let the show begin. The day of the family reunion arrived, and my nerves were on edge. Allison, Jack, and I got there early to set up our presentation with Tom's help. As family members started to arrive, I watched Barbara and Karen greet everyone with fake smiles and cheerful hugs, oblivious to what was about to unfold. The sight made my blood boil and solidified my resolve. Once everyone had gathered, I stood up and cleared my throat. Excuse me, everyone, I need your attention for a moment. There's something crucial we need to address. Barbara looked puzzled. Melissa, dear, what's this about? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It's about the years of manipulation, deceit, and cruelty that you and Karen have inflicted on Allison and our family. The room fell silent. Tom dimmed the lights, and our slideshow began. Last week, Barbara and Karen destroyed Allison's prom dress, I said, pointing to the security footage as it played. Gasps of shock filled the room. We went through incident after incident, the snubs at birthday parties, the ruined clothes, the hurtful rumors. With each revelation, the expressions of shock and disgust on everyone's faces grew more intense. Karen jumped up, her face flushed with anger. This is absurd. We've never done anything to hurt Allison. Her protest was drowned out by family members speaking up. Cousin Rachel said, So that's why you told me Allison couldn't make it to my wedding, you claimed she was sick. Uncle Steve added. And the time you said Allison was spreading rumors about my son? That was a lie too. Barbara and Karen's faces turned ashen, and they desperately searched the room for allies, but found none. Sarah stepped forward, her lawyer persona in full effect. What you've done amounts to harassment and defamation, not to mention destruction of property. We have a strong case for legal action. Barbara sneered. You wouldn't dare. We're family. I locked eyes with her, unwavering. Family doesn't treat people the way you have. You've left us no choice. The impact was immediate. Other family members began sharing their own experiences of Barbara and Karen's manipulative behavior. It was as if a dam had burst. Ultimately, pressing charges became unnecessary. The family decided on their own to cut Barbara and Karen out. No more invitations. No more contact. Allison's prom night was a triumph. In her new dress, which was even more stunning than the original, she radiated happiness. Mom, she said as she was leaving, thank you for everything. I hugged her tightly, my eyes welling up. Always, sweetie, I'll always be here for you. Later that night, as I reflected on everything that had transpired, I realized an important truth. Confronting toxic behavior, even within the family, isn't easy, but it's essential for our well-being and for those we love. And that's the end of Melissa and Allison's story. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Was Melissa justified in exposing Barbara and Karen's behavior to the whole family, or should she have handled it more privately? Is public confrontation ever the right choice when dealing with toxic family members? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help others facing similar situations. If you found this story compelling and want to see more like it, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more real-life dramas to light. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. You think you're being bullied by your mom, but it's all in your head, right? Mom is just teaching you how to be a proper daughter-in-law. You're so good at not playing the victim. These were Steve's words when I shared my concerns about the harassment from my mother-in-law. Pamela consistently threw away the meals I prepared and discarded the laundry I hung out to dry. To Steve, this was just his mother's way of instructing me in the ways of being a good daughter-in-law. Seeing my silent frustration, Steve merely chuckled dismissively and said something that left me in disbelief. My name is Laura. I'm 28 and work at a pharmaceutical company. Steve was a college friend, and we married 3 years ago. I lost my parents around the time I graduated from college. Their deaths were sudden, and as an only child, I felt isolated and adrift. My parents didn't maintain much contact with relatives, so the funeral was attended mostly by acquaintances and friends. Grieving was barely an option as I dove into my new job, where I met Steve through a mutual friend. Out of sympathy for my loss, Steve frequently invited me to his parents' home. His parents welcomed me warmly from the start, and I believed in our strong bond even after our marriage. I enjoyed Pamela's cooking and hoped to continue working after having children, feeling that I'd need help if I couldn't place our future kids in daycare. When I voiced my concerns to Steve, he assured me that Pamela would be there to help, and things initially went smoothly. I moved in with Pamela and Steve while my father-in-law was away on a job assignment, so it was just the three of us in the house. Initially, things were fine, but after 3 years of living with my in-laws and struggling with infertility, Pamela's attitude toward me shifted dramatically. She would say, Laura, how many times do I have to remind you? You're the youngest here, so it's your job to handle the housework on weekends. Pamela continually pushed her chores onto me, despite my already significant responsibilities around the house. She would deliberately drop my freshly laundered clothes in the yard and dirty the dishes I'd just cleaned, forcing me to redo them. Her constant nagging about trivial matters and lectures on not providing grandchildren took a heavy toll on me. Steve's lack of understanding only deepened my sense of despair. I repeatedly told Steve about Pamela's harassment and insults, but he always brushed it off with comments like, "You're imagining things," or, "You're overthinking it." Pamela never harassed me in front of Steve, so maybe he couldn't believe his mother could act so cruelly. Regardless, Steve's dismissive attitude was unacceptable. It felt like Pamela was the victim and I was the villain, leaving me feeling completely isolated in my own home. Once Steve's disbelief became apparent, Pamela's mistreatment escalated. What was once hidden now occurred openly, with verbal abuse and harassment becoming a constant presence. Around this time, I discovered I was pregnant. Despite moving past the difficult phase of morning sickness and entering a more stable period, my heart felt heavy. The relentless harassment from Pamela, combined with Steve's disbelief and his own harshness towards me, were overwhelming. Even though Steve had been thrilled about the pregnancy initially, he now joined Pamela in disparaging me, calling me a lazy woman who does nothing but eat and sleep. I knew stress was harmful to the baby, but I felt trapped with no apparent solution. Despite everything, Steve was still the only person I could turn to. I decided it was time for a serious conversation, hoping that confronting him about Pamela's mistreatment might change his attitude for the sake of our unborn child. One weekend, I approached Steve while he was lounging in the living room. "Hey, there's something I need to talk to you about." Steve looked up lazily from his phone. "Lately, both Pamela and you have been really cruel to me. When Pamela harasses me, you just ignore it and pretend it isn't happening. Can you please stop doing that?" Steve's expression was blank, as if unsure whether to listen, before he mockingly turned his attention back to me. "You're just overreacting. What mom does isn't harassment. How can you say that? Throwing away the food I make without touching it, deliberately littering my room, isn't that harassment? Maybe mom thinks she's teaching me to be a proper daughter-in-law, but it's more than I can handle. I can't raise a child in this toxic environment. You and Pamela may see it as normal, but it's destroying me. I'm at my limit." My hand rested on my stomach, trembling slightly as I spoke. My anguished plea seemed to fall on deaf ears, and Steve's response was only mocking laughter. At my breaking point, Steve said coldly, "If it's so bad, why don't you just leave? Neither mom nor I would be troubled by your absence." His unexpected suggestion stunned me for a moment, but then I pressed my hands against my belly and exclaimed, "What are you talking about? I'm pregnant." Steve's indifferent gaze and dry laugh made it clear he didn't care. "Right, you have nowhere to go. With no parents and no home to return to, you're left with nothing." Steve's mocking words echoed in my mind. I bit my lip and glared at him, my anger palpable. "What's with that look?" Steve asked, slightly uncomfortable under my intense stare. After a tense pause, I said firmly, "I'm going back to my parents' home." Steve's laughter erupted. "Go back if you can. You'll probably end up on the streets, talking big about going back to your parents." As Steve continued to laugh, I pulled out a large Boston bag from the closet and began packing clothes and valuables. Steve seemed to think I had no alternative but to stay in his parents' house, believing I would ultimately return out of necessity. Pamela, who had overheard, joined in with, "It's your fault for not following the rules of this house." Like Steve, she seemed to think I should leave if I couldn't handle it. I was determined never to return to my in-laws' home. Once I had settled elsewhere, I planned to send divorce papers. After packing, I turned to Steve and Pamela, who were still laughing unpleasantly, and said, "Goodbye." I resolved then to raise my child on my own, knowing they would never see our daughter. A year has passed since I left my in-laws' house. I successfully gave birth to a daughter, and despite the challenges of parenting alone, I've never returned to them. 3 months after leaving, I sent Steve divorce papers, which were processed without issue. I also requested child support, but Steve hasn't paid. It looks like I'll need to consult a lawyer and negotiate with him in the future. Meanwhile, I'm doing my best to lift my spirits. I gazed up at the towering high-rise in front of me, a sign reading, "Model room open for viewing," prominently displayed at the entrance. Occasionally, other visitors arrived to check out the property. I was considering buying a condo before returning to work, as my current place was far from both my workplace and the nearest childcare center. Since I'd be raising my child alone, it was essential to find a more convenient location and settle down soon. Fortunately, I had the financial means to purchase a condo. After registering at the reception on the first floor, I was escorted to a room on the top floor. I followed the guide to the elevator, which ascended to the 50th floor. When the doors opened, I was taken aback to see Steve standing there. He was the last person I expected to encounter in this setting. Steve, who was supposed to be working at a securities firm when we were married, had evidently changed careers. Steve looked visibly unsettled as our eyes met, clearly unprepared for our encounter. This was the top floor of a high-end apartment building, accessible only to serious buyers. With an awkward smile, Steve began showing me around the floor. Despite his courteous demeanor, his frequent, puzzled glances made it clear he was wondering why I was here. The room itself was impressive, close to my workplace with an underground connection to a childcare center. As expected from a luxury high-rise, it featured a park in the courtyard and a 24-hour supermarket below, making it an ideal place to raise my child on my own. "I think I'll take this apartment," I said. Steve's surprise was evident. I had come prepared to sign a contract immediately if I found a place I liked. However, Steve did not produce the contract despite my waiting. Just as I was about to ask him about it, his lips quivered, and he spoke. "There's no way a single mom going through a divorce can afford the top floor of a high-rise," Steve said, his face a mix of disbelief and something that felt almost accusatory. Did you find a rich guy to support you? Or are you involved in something shady? I took a step back as he closed in. No, I simply sold my family home for more than I anticipated. Your family home? Steve seemed skeptical. I explained the situation from the past year. After leaving my in-laws, I had moved back into my family home, which was in my name. Both my parents had passed away, and the house was too large for me to manage alone. The elaborate water garden, a project of my father's, likely added to the home's value. Just before the baby was born, someone offered to buy it, but I hadn't expected it to fetch enough to afford the top floor of a luxury high-rise. Steve's doubt was understandable. The house was old and showing signs of wear. I had thought the proceeds would cover living expenses for a while, but the buyer was a wealthy individual who valued the water garden more than the house itself. He offered 5 times the market value, motivated by his interest in the garden. Despite its current state, I explained that the garden was a personal hobby, not professionally landscaped, and that I had only maintained it minimally. The buyer appreciated the potential and planned to have it reworked by a professional gardener. He even added a living allowance to the purchase price. Feeling sympathetic towards me, this generous offer allowed me to afford a nearby apartment, focusing on childcare without financial concerns. Hearing my explanation, Steve's eyes briefly brightened before his demeanor shifted. He adopted a humble tone and offered an apology. I'm sorry for what happened. Can we start over? His face exuded confidence, as if he was certain I would accept his offer. But I didn't take his hand. I can raise my child and live well without you. I have no desire to be with someone who looks down on others. At that moment, Steve's expression darkened with anger. He glared at me, his face contorted with fury. You're rejecting my offer to remarry? You. Just then, a colleague appeared behind Steve, perhaps drawn by our prolonged conversation. Steve cast a quick glance at him but seemed otherwise oblivious to his presence. A woman being rich is just wrong. Women should quietly support their men and stay at home. The colleague's face went pale at Steve's comment. I silenced his attempt to intervene with a stern look. Is that all you wanted to say? So now that you think you're successful, you feel you can look down on me? You were better off as a servant in your own home. I sighed and turned to the employee, who stood frozen with a stack of contracts and documents. I can't make a major purchase from a company that employs someone who speaks like this. At my words, Steve finally turned around. The employee, realizing he was being addressed, rushed over, apologizing profusely and nearly scattering the documents in his haste. I'm so sorry. My subordinate was incredibly rude to you. Please, apologize as well, the boss urged Steve, who seemed to realize the situation was spiraling. Steve and his boss apologized repeatedly. Please stop, I said, cutting them off. The boss hesitantly looked up. I won't be buying the apartment. I'll look at other options. Their faces fell into expressions of despair. Wait, I'll reconsider everything I said. Just this contract? Do you really think I'd finalize a deal with someone after all you've said? Steve's defeat was clear. The outcome was a loss for Steve, who had always looked down on others, and for his boss, who likely hoped that our ex-spouse connection would smooth things over. I felt little sympathy. I liked the apartment, the location and layout were perfect, but I couldn't justify spending my money with a company that had such individuals. I left them behind, bowing as I exited the room. No one saw me off as I took the elevator down and walked away, determined to find another place. Later, I learned from Pamela that Steve not only lost the big contract for the top floor apartment but also faced a pay cut and demotion due to his behavior, eventually leading to his resignation. Struggling to find new work, he turned to alcohol and gambling, with Pamela taking care of him. When I ran into Pamela at the supermarket, she pleaded with me. My son isn't working and stays at home, taking his frustration out on me. I'm sorry for everything. Please remarry him and come back. I responded quickly. Why don't you leave the house if it's so bad? Pamela's face fell in despair, and I felt a small sense of relief. I purchased an apartment in a different building and returned to work. With my child and childcare, the funds from selling my family home were more than enough to support us. I loved my job and, after being asked to return, accepted with a recent promotion. Now, I'm living a fulfilling life, balancing work and childcare. Hi, I'm Valerie, 29 years old. For a long time, I couldn't share my story due to legal constraints, but now I can. I want to share my experience as a cautionary tale for my mother-in-law, Felicia. I hope she stays away from us in the future. Adrian and I met through our mothers. Felicia, Adrian's mother, and my mother, Veronica, had been close friends for years. After a long period of not seeing each other, they reconnected and realized they both had single children. They decided to introduce us. And a week later, Adrian and I found ourselves at a coffee shop together. Though it was a bit awkward at first, we quickly found common ground and bonded over our shared interests in action movies and pizza. We were so absorbed in our conversation that time flew by. As the sun set, we said our goodbyes with a promise to meet again soon. Our next date was a movie night followed by pizza, and over the next 2 months, we continued seeing each other regularly. I fell deeply in love with Adrian, and it was clear he felt the same way. His face would light up whenever he saw me. He listened attentively to everything I said and often surprised me with thoughtful gestures based on our conversations. His sense of humor, attentiveness, and care for me were some of the many reasons I fell for him. Eventually, I took the first step and asked him to be my boyfriend, and he eagerly agreed. We proudly introduced ourselves as a couple to our parents, who were thrilled that their matchmaking had succeeded. However, I soon noticed a shift in Felicia's demeanor. She became distant and occasionally made snide comments. Whenever I confronted her about it, she would dismiss my concerns or insist I was overreacting. This behavior troubled me, so I confided in Adrian. He was upset and vowed to address the issue with his mother. I was relieved by Adrian's support. Despite his deep love for his mother, his willingness to stand up for me was a significant comfort. Although I'm not sure what he said to her, Felicia's behavior improved, and our interactions returned to normal. Adrian and I dated for 2 years before getting married in a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. Shortly after our wedding, tragedy struck. Felicia's house was destroyed by a fire caused by faulty wiring. Thankfully, she was unharmed as she was out of the house at the time. With nowhere else to go, we welcomed her into our home, where she lived with us for the next year. During that year, Adrian and I were thriving in our careers and felt it was the perfect time to start a family. We were ecstatic when I got pregnant within 2 months. We had always dreamed of becoming parents, and the realization of that dream filled us with joy. However, our happiness began to wane as Felicia grew increasingly controlling. I was struggling with severe morning sickness, cramping, and swollen legs, which made managing household chores and work exhausting. Felicia's patience wore thin as my condition worsened, and she started demanding that I do her chores despite my condition. One day, I came home early from work, feeling overwhelmed by pain. I lay down to rest, but was abruptly woken by Felicia's shouting. She was furious that I hadn't done her laundry. "Valerie, why didn't you do the laundry today? Now I have nothing to wear." "What are you talking about? It's your responsibility to take care of your own laundry," I replied, disoriented from being woken up. "I'm in so much pain right now. Are you trying to start a fight?" "Pregnancy isn't that bad. You're just exaggerating for attention," she retorted dismissively. "You have no idea what I'm going through. Balancing work and household chores while feeling this unwell is extremely difficult." "That's not my problem. I was pregnant once too, and I never had it this bad. Get out of the room, get out of the house, get out of my life. How dare you accuse me of faking my pain? Do you think you can feel what I'm feeling? Just leave." Felicia looked taken aback and quickly exited the room. I was stunned by her audacity and cruelty. How could she dismiss my suffering so callously? At that moment, Adrian arrived home from work. Concerned, he rushed upstairs and saw his mother hastily leaving the room. He entered our bedroom to find me crying uncontrollably on the bed. Without hesitation, he sat beside me, holding me close as I sobbed. After a while, he gently asked, "Why are you crying?" Through my tears, I recounted the entire confrontation with Felicia and her ongoing demands. Adrian's anger flared as he prepared to confront his mother, but I stopped him. Seeing my distress, he took a deep breath and calmed down. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? I know how much this upset you. I didn't want to create more conflict between you and your mother. I felt sorry for her and kept it to myself," I explained. "I understand why you did that, but I should have known what was happening. You need to share everything with me, especially when it's affecting you this way." "I'm sorry, darling. I should have been more open. We're a team, and you don't have to handle this alone. I promise I'll address this with my mother calmly, and I want you to be there with me." Together, we walked to Felicia's room. I was anxious about Adrian's reaction. His protective nature and quick temper worried me, and I hoped he wouldn't act in a way he might regret. Felicia looked taken aback when Adrian and I entered her room. "Why are you both in my room? What's going on?" "Cut the pretense. Mom, Valerie has told me everything. You've been constantly berating her over the household chores," Adrian said firmly. "She should be handling them. After all, I'm just a guest here. You could have either done them yourself or waited for me to get to them. It's a woman's job to manage household tasks. You'd never catch me asking you for help with these things." Felicia retorted. I don't care about your outdated beliefs. This is my home, and you need to respect that. If you can't follow my rules, then maybe it's time you found somewhere else to stay, Adrian replied. You can't do that. I have no other place to go. The only reason you haven't already kicked me out is because Valerie asked you not to. But if you push me again, I won't hesitate. I'm giving you one last chance. You need to treat Valerie with the respect she deserves as part of our family. Fine. I promise I won't cause any more trouble. Just please don't make me leave. Good. Things need to change. Respect Valerie, or there will be consequences. The remainder of my pregnancy went much more smoothly. As I progressed, my symptoms eased. Finally, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, whom Adrian and I named Ava. We were overjoyed to welcome her into our family. After spending 2 days in the hospital, Adrian picked us up on the 3rd day before heading to work and brought us home. Felicia greeted us warmly. Oh, look at my precious granddaughter. You've done such a wonderful job, Valerie. She's the most beautiful bundle of joy. Thank you, Felicia. That means a lot, I said, feeling grateful for the positive words. Valerie needs to rest now, Mom. She's just given birth, and Ava kept her up all night. Don't worry, I'll take care of the baby. You go and get some much-needed rest, Felicia offered. I don't want to be away from Ava so soon, I said hesitantly. Trust me, you'll need this rest. Mom will take good care of her while you recuperate. Okay, but just for a couple of hours, then I'll take over, I agreed. That sounds fair. You rest, and I'll look after Ava, Felicia said reassuringly. Thank you, Mom. With that, Adrian headed off to work, leaving me to rest and recover while Felicia cared for our newborn. I went to sleep while Felicia looked after Ava. A couple of hours later, I was jolted awake by Ava's loud crying. Concerned, I went to check on her, only to find that the sound was coming from Felicia's room. I wasn't sure if Felicia was deliberately ignoring Ava or if she was simply sleeping through the noise. I knocked on her door, but there was no answer. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. Panic began to set in as I banged on the door and yelled for Felicia to let me in. After a few minutes, she finally opened the door just enough for me to see part of her face. Felicia, what's going on? Let me see Ava. I'm teaching you a lesson, she said coldly. You can't rely on Adrian for everything. You need to take responsibility for your duties around the house. This isn't the way to teach a lesson. You're being cruel. Let me have Ava back. I need to make sure she's fed and safe, I pleaded. Complete your chores first, and then you can have Ava. The longer you take, the longer your child goes hungry. Fear replaced my anger. I was desperate to ensure Ava's safety and well-being, even if it meant enduring Felicia's harsh demands. I couldn't understand why she was being so cruel right after my childbirth, but I had no choice but to comply. I asked Felicia what needed to be done. She listed a pile of dishes to be washed, dusting and vacuuming the house, and scrubbing the common bathroom clean. She also warned me to finish everything before Adrian returned and to keep this from him, or she'd make things even worse for me. Nodding through my tears, I set out to complete the chores. Despite the pain and exhaustion from childbirth, I pushed myself to clean the house. I took painkillers to prevent fainting and was careful not to strain my stitches. The physical strain and emotional stress had me crying throughout the process. I wanted to tell Adrian, but I feared what Felicia might do to Ava if I did. I was relieved when Felicia managed to get Ava to stop crying, but my anxiety about the future persisted. I wished for a way out of this ordeal, and the universe responded more favorably than I had hoped. Adrian came home 2 hours early, intending to surprise us. When Adrian walked in, he couldn't find me anywhere. Noticing the light on in the common bathroom, he walked in to find me on my hands and knees, scrubbing the floor while sobbing. His face showed immediate concern as he rushed to my side. "Why are you doing this to yourself?" he asked, his voice filled with worry. Seeing him only made me sob harder. Adrian pulled me into his arms, gently stroking my hair as he waited for me to calm down. Once I had regained some composure, I explained what Felicia had done. Adrian's anger was palpable, and this time, I didn't try to stop him. Adrian stormed to Felicia's room and banged on the door. When she opened it, she looked at him in surprise. "Adrian, why are you home early? Did you forget something?" "I didn't forget anything. I came home early to surprise Ava and see my family, but instead, I found you punishing my wife in the cruelest way possible." "Oh, come on. I was just trying to help her become a better wife and mother. She needs to learn to handle her responsibilities." "Help? That wasn't help. It was cruel and heartless. How could you treat her like that? She needs to learn, but not at the expense of our child's well-being," Adrian snapped. "For her own good? Look at our baby. You had no right to involve her in your twisted lessons. She's just a baby. I know what's best for everyone, including you. Valerie needs to change. No, you need to change. I won't let you hurt my family anymore. We're done. I want you out of our lives. Adrian, you can't be serious. I thought you cared about me. I did care about you once, but not anymore. You've crossed the line, and I won't tolerate it. I will make sure you face the consequences. Adrian, please, I didn't mean for this to happen. It's too late for apologies. You need to face the consequences of your actions. Adrian turned and walked out of the room, handing Ava back to me. I cried tears of relief and joy as I held my daughter. I knew that Felicia's actions had been monstrous and that she needed to be held accountable. My anger burned hot, and I wanted to see her pay for what she had done. I turned to Adrian, who looked resolute. What are you going to do about Felicia? I'm filing a lawsuit against her. She endangered our child and harassed you. She needs to pay dearly for what she did, Adrian declared firmly. But Adrian, is a lawsuit really the right way to handle this? You and Ava are my world. Nothing is too much if anyone harms either of you. I can't believe she treated you like that. Thank you for standing up for us. I never imagined she would go to such extremes to get her way. I don't know what I would have done without you. It was terrifying. From now on, you and Ava will be safe. I won't allow anyone to hurt you ever again. True to his word, Adrian filed the lawsuit. A few days later, Felicia was served with a court summons. Shocked, she confronted Adrian. What's this summons for? You endangered my child and harassed my wife after she gave birth. I had to file this lawsuit to hold you accountable for your actions, Adrian said firmly. Adrian, please, I didn't mean to cause harm. I was just trying to help, Felicia pleaded. Your idea of help is twisted. You crossed a line, and now you have to face the consequences, Adrian replied coldly. But we're family. You can't do this to me. Family doesn't give anyone the right to hurt others. You hurt Valerie and traumatized Ava. I won't stand for it. Please, I'll change. I promise I won't interfere anymore. It's too late for promises. You have no evidence against me, Felicia said defiantly. I installed baby cameras the night before Valerie came home from the hospital. I have more than enough evidence of you mistreating my family, Adrian said firmly. Adrian, I beg you, don't do this. I'll do anything to make it right. You had your chance to be better. Now you must face the truth. You broke my trust, and I won't let you hurt my family any longer. In the following months, the court proceedings moved swiftly. Felicia was charged with a misdemeanor and sentenced to 6 months in jail plus an $800 fine. When the judge announced the sentence, Felicia broke down and wept uncontrollably in the courtroom. Adrian remained unmoved by her tears and looked satisfied that justice was being served. As I watched Felicia being led away in handcuffs, I felt a sense of relief. For at least the next 6 months, our family would be free from her toxic behavior. Adrian and I focused on raising our newborn daughter, Ava, and didn't let Felicia's actions overshadow our lives. We found strength in each other and in the support of our friends and loved ones. While Felicia served her sentence, she had time to reflect on her actions. Adrian and I worked on healing from the trauma she had caused. Though I couldn't fully forgive her, I knew it was important for us to move forward for the sake of our family. Felicia completed her jail time and sought counseling to make amends for her behavior. I wanted to believe she could change, but I remained cautious. When she attempted to reach out, I threatened to get a restraining order. Our lives gradually returned to normal. The pain Felicia had caused lingered, but we focused on building a brighter future and cherishing the joy Ava brought into our lives. Hi, I'm Antonella, a 32-year-old thriving in the world of interior design. Life felt pretty solid, until everything shifted when my brother Jake met Vanessa. Antonella, you won't believe it, I've met the most amazing woman. Jake practically beamed over the phone. I was genuinely happy for him. Jake and I had always been close, sharing everything. With our parents fostering a tight-knit bond between us, we had each other's backs, no matter what. But 3 months later, Jake dropped a bombshell. We're getting married. I nearly spit out my coffee. Married? Jake, you barely know her. But he was head over heels, and the whirlwind wedding soon followed. In the blink of an eye, I had a sister-in-law. At first, Vanessa seemed perfect, polite, full of smiles, but something felt off. At a family dinner, I noticed how she subtly steered the conversation. So, Antonella's still single? Don't worry, I'm sure you'll find someone eventually, she'd say with a saccharine smile. But there was always an underlying sting in her words. I shrugged it off at first. But the comments kept coming, disguised as concern but always laced with judgment. One day, while helping Mom in the kitchen, I overheard Vanessa talking to Jake. "Honey, don't you think Antonella's job is a bit unstable? I'm just concerned about her future." My jaw clenched. I had built my business from the ground up. It wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. The last straw came at Jake's birthday party. Vanessa, accidentally, spilled red wine on my new dress. "Oh, I'm so clumsy. But don't worry, it probably wasn't that expensive, right?" she said, her smile as sweet as ever. I forced a smile, but inside, I was furious. That night, I vented to my best friend, Megan. "I'm telling you, Meg, something is off with Vanessa." Megan nodded. "I've noticed it too. The way she looks at you when she thinks no one's paying attention, like you're some kind of competition." I sighed, "But Jake's so happy. Mom and Dad think she's wonderful. Am I just being paranoid?" Megan shook her head. "Trust your instincts, Antonella. Keep an eye on her." So that's what I did. I watched as Vanessa subtly inserted herself into every part of our family's life. She offered to help Dad with his finances, critiquing his methods, and even reorganized Mom's kitchen, insisting it was more efficient. But it was Jake's transformation that worried me the most. My once outgoing, independent brother had become quieter, always deferring to Vanessa's opinions. It was like his spark had dimmed, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. During a shopping trip with Mom, I finally decided to bring it up. "Mom, have you noticed Jake acting differently lately?" She hesitated, rearranging the items in her cart. "Well, sweetie, he's married now. It's normal for people to change after marriage. But it's not just that. He's like a completely different person. He barely speaks his mind anymore." Mom gave me a soft smile, the kind that said she didn't quite understand. "You're just not used to sharing him yet. Give it time." I wanted to believe her, but time only seemed to make things worse. Family gatherings became tense, filled with passive-aggressive comments and uncomfortable silences. I bit my tongue every time Vanessa made a snide remark, hoping to keep the peace, but the pressure was wearing me down. My work started to suffer, and sleepless nights became routine. Then, after an especially harsh family dinner where Vanessa criticized everything from my outfit to my latest design project, I broke down in my apartment. It felt like I was drowning in the chaos she'd created. The phone rang just as the tears started falling. It was Megan. "Antonella, are you okay? You seemed really off at dinner." I couldn't hold it in anymore. Every suspicion, every fear, every comment Vanessa had made, I spilled it all to Megan. The way Vanessa had slowly isolated Jake, turned family events into battlegrounds, and made me feel like a stranger in my own home. Megan was quiet for a moment before speaking with a firmness I hadn't expected. "This has gone too far. Antonella, you can't just sit by and watch this happen. It's time to dig deeper. Vanessa's not who she seems, and we need to figure out what's really going on." I hung up the phone, feeling a mixture of determination and dread. I loved my family, and I'd do anything to protect them, even if it meant exposing the wolf in sheep's clothing that had infiltrated our lives. But I had no idea how much worse things were about to get. The annual family barbecue at my parents' house was supposed to be a day of fun and relaxation. Instead, it became a nightmare that would haunt me for a long time. Everyone was in the backyard, Dad flipping burgers at the grill, Mom setting out salads, and Jake helping Vanessa adjust her chair. I was chatting with my cousin when Vanessa's sharp voice cut through the air. "Antonella, sweetie, could you grab me a drink? You're not doing anything important, right?" Vanessa's voice rang out, cutting through the pleasant hum of conversation. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, Mom called everyone to eat. The tension was already bubbling beneath the surface. As we sat down to dinner, Vanessa's little jabs continued, her words sharp but coated in sweetness. "This potato salad is amazing, Mom, much better than the store-bought one Antonella brought last time." I clenched my fork, trying to stay calm, but I'd had enough. "At least I contribute something. Vanessa, what exactly do you bring to these gatherings, besides criticism?" The table went still, all eyes were on us, and Vanessa's expression hardened, her lips curling into a tight smile. "Well, I bring class, for one thing, something you clearly lack." Before I could stop myself, the words spilled out. "Class? Is that what you call being a manipulative bee?" "Antonella," Jake's voice cut through the air, his shock evident. Vanessa rose from her seat, her eyes glistening with tears that seemed to appear on cue. "I can't believe you'd say such awful things after everything I've done for this family," she cried, rushing away dramatically, with Jake quickly following her. I sat there, my chest heaving, the weight of my parents' disappointed stares pressing down on me. Later, as I helped clean up in the kitchen, Vanessa cornered me, her demeanor changing entirely. Her soft smile had vanished, replaced with a chilling sneer. "Listen here, you little nobody. Jake is mine now, and soon this family will see you for what you are, a jealous, pathetic person," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. I blinked in disbelief. "You're delusional, Vanessa." Before I could react, she grabbed a fistful of my hair, yanking it hard. Pain shot through my scalp as she dragged me into the living room, where Jake was deep in conversation with Dad. "Jake, look what your sister did. She attacked me," Vanessa wailed, her voice trembling with false tears. Jake turned, his face a mix of disbelief and anger. "Antonella, what the hell?" I tried to explain, but my voice was drowned out by Vanessa's sobs, and Jake's mind was already made up. "I think you should leave, Antonella." The humiliation burned through me as I gathered my things and stormed out of the house, my heart pounding with frustration and rage. The next day, Megan found me still curled up on the couch in yesterday's clothes, surrounded by empty ice cream containers. She took one look at me and shook her head. "That's it," she said firmly, determination flashing in her eyes. "We're not letting her get away with this. It's time to fight back." Over the next week, Megan and I began digging into Vanessa's past, determined to expose the truth. What we uncovered shocked us both: inconsistencies in her stories, lies about the prestigious college she supposedly attended, and a company she claimed to work for that didn't even exist. Then, luck struck while we were grabbing coffee. I bumped into Sarah at a local cafe, and as soon as she heard Vanessa's name, her eyes narrowed. "Oh, you know Vanessa? How's she doing? Still ruining lives?" I blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" Sarah didn't hold back. She told me everything. How Vanessa had a notorious reputation at her old job for workplace bullying. She manipulated coworkers, twisted bosses around her finger, and even got Sarah fired by planting fake evidence of theft. "Watch your back," Sarah warned, her voice serious. "Vanessa's dangerous, especially when she feels threatened." I left the cafe in a daze, my mind racing. I finally had proof, real, undeniable proof, that Vanessa wasn't who she pretended to be. But as I reached for my phone to call Jake, I paused. Would he even believe me? Or would confronting him just push him further into Vanessa's web? Standing there, torn between protecting my brother and risking our already fragile relationship, I realized this was only the beginning. Vanessa's mask had slipped, but exposing her was going to be far more complicated than I imagined. After weeks of internal struggle, I decided to take action. I met with Mike, a private investigator recommended by a client, at a quiet coffee shop. "So, you want me to dig into your sister-in-law's past?" he asked, tapping the folder I slid across the table. "Here's what I've uncovered so far, but I need more," I said, watching as he thumbed through the documents. He raised his eyebrows as he skimmed the pages. "Your sister-in-law's got more red flags than a carnival. I'll see what I can find." 2 weeks later, Mike called with news that sent a chill down my spine. "Antonella, your sister-in-law isn't just a liar, she's a seasoned con artist. She's been linked to multiple identities, fraud charges in 3 states, and here's the kicker, she's using your brother's business to launder money." My stomach dropped. How is she doing that? Fake invoices, ghost employees, the whole 9 yards. Your brother's company is on the verge of collapsing, and he doesn't even know it. I thanked Mike and hung up, my mind spinning. I had to tell Jake, but how could I break this to him without tearing our family apart? Before I could figure out my next move, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Family dinner tonight. Vanessa insists. Please come." Perfect. Just what I needed. Dinner that night was thick with tension. Vanessa played her usual part, smiling sweetly, but her eyes were cold and calculating when they met mine. She knew something was off. I could feel it. "Jake, honey, why don't you tell everyone about our vacation plans?" Vanessa said, her smile strained. Jake cleared his throat. "We're thinking of taking an extended trip, probably around 6 months. I nearly spit out my wine. 6 months? What about the business? Vanessa's smile faltered just a bit. Oh, Jake can manage everything remotely, can't you, sweetheart? I could see the strings she was pulling, but Jake just nodded in agreement. After dinner, I pulled Jake aside in the kitchen. Are you sure about this trip? He sighed deeply. Antonella, Vanessa thinks it'll be good for us to get away from everything for a while. I bit back my frustration, realizing how deeply Vanessa had her claws sunk into him. In the days that followed, I reached out to Sarah and other victims I'd uncovered. We formed a support group, exchanging stories and evidence. We need to stop her, Sarah urged during one of our meetings, before she does any more damage. I agreed, feeling a plan start to take shape. I think I have an idea. I spent the next week meticulously gathering all the evidence I could find, but Vanessa wasn't oblivious. She must have sensed something. One evening, as I left my office, I discovered my car's tires slashed. A note on the windshield read, "Back off, or next time it won't just be the tires." I called Megan, my hands trembling. She knows. Megan, Vanessa's figured out that I'm onto her. Megan's tone was resolute. Then we need to act fast, before she can do any more harm. I agreed and started putting my plan into action. I called my parents, Jake, and other extended family members. Emergency family meeting tomorrow night. It's about Jake's safety. As I hung up, doubt began to creep in. Was I making the right choice? What if this backfired? But then I thought about Jake's weary face and Vanessa's manipulative grip on everyone around her. No, this had to be done. The next day dragged on endlessly. I triple-checked my evidence and rehearsed my speech. As evening approached, I received a text from Jake. "Vanessa's not feeling well. We might not make it." My heart sank. Of course, she tried to avoid this. I texted back urgently, "Please, Jake, this is important. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't." Hours passed with no response. Just as I was losing hope, I heard a car pull up outside my apartment. I looked out the window. Jake was helping Vanessa out of the car, her face pale and leaning on him dramatically. As Jake and Vanessa stepped into my apartment, the tension in the room was almost tangible. My parents, Megan, Sarah, and a few others were already there, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Vanessa seemed taken aback by the gathering. "What's going on?" Jake asked, his confusion evident. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Jake, everyone, it's time you knew the truth about Vanessa." Vanessa's eyes narrowed, her voice dripping with disdain. "Antonella, you're being absurd." Ignoring her, I pulled out a thick stack of documents and began laying them out on the table. "Vanessa, or should I say Amanda, or maybe Lisa, how many identities do you have?" Jake's face drained of color as he sifted through the evidence, fraudulent charges, stolen identities, and proof of money laundering through his company. Sarah and the others began recounting their experiences with Vanessa's manipulation and deceit. Vanessa tried to interrupt, her voice rising in desperation. "They're lying. Jake, you know me better than this." But Jake's initial disbelief quickly shifted to anger. "Is this true? Have you been using my company for money laundering?" Vanessa's facade shattered. Her previously sweet demeanor was replaced by a fierce, vindictive rage. "You're all fools, Jake. You were so easy to manipulate, and the rest of you are pathetic," she spat. Mom gasped. Dad's fists clenched tightly, and Jake looked devastated. Vanessa made a frantic attempt to flee, but Sarah stepped in front of her, blocking her way. "Not so fast. The police are on their way." The next few hours were a blur. Vanessa was arrested, hurling threats and curses as she was escorted out. Jake sat in stunned silence, struggling to process the betrayal. As days turned into weeks, Jake filed for divorce and worked relentlessly to untangle his business from the mess Vanessa had left. I was there every step of the way, supporting him through the turmoil. Months later, as we celebrated the successful relaunch of Jake's company, he pulled me aside. "Antonella, I'm sorry I didn't believe you sooner. Thank you for standing by me." I hugged him tightly, feeling our bond grow stronger. Looking around at my family, now free from Vanessa's toxic influence, I felt a deep sense of relief and gratitude. It hadn't been easy, but it was worth it. We were free, we were together, and we were stronger for having faced the storm together. Would you expose your sibling's spouse if you discovered they were a criminal, or keep quiet to protect your sibling's happiness? What's more important, family peace or justice? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you'd do. If you enjoyed this wild ride, don't forget to hit that like button. Hi, I'm Sophia, a 28-year-old new mother learning to navigate the beautiful yet challenging world of motherhood. The first days at home with my newborn son were a mix of pure joy and overwhelming exhaustion. While his presence filled our lives with happiness, the physical recovery from childbirth proved far harder than I had imagined. The house was in constant disarray, laundry piled high, dishes left untouched in the sink. One afternoon, as I was desperately trying to soothe my crying son, the doorbell rang. To my surprise, it was Linda, my mother-in-law, arriving unannounced. Her eyes swept over the cluttered living room before landing on me with a mixture of concern and judgment. "I thought I'd drop by to see how you're doing," Dear, she said, stepping over a scattered baby toy, Tom mentioned you might need some help. Thanks, Linda. Things are a little hectic, but we're getting by, I replied, trying to keep the tension out of my voice. Linda wandered into the kitchen, eyeing the pile of dishes. It looks like you need more than just a little help, she remarked pointedly. Is this how you plan to raise my grandson? Her words cut deep, the weight of her judgment pressing down on my already fragile emotions. I'm doing my best, I said quietly, clutching my son a bit tighter. Linda sighed, her tone sharp. Sophia, being a mother is about getting your priorities straight, and right now, it seems like you aren't prioritizing anything. Before I could respond, Tom walked in, sensing the tension. He quickly tried to smooth things over. Mom, Sophia's doing an incredible job. The baby's been up all night, and it's been rough. But Linda wasn't backing down. Tom, she needs to understand what's important here. It's not just about cleaning, it's about taking responsibility. She's not meeting the family standards. Tom glanced at me, then back at his mother, torn between defending me and appeasing her. Mom, please, now's not the time. Sophia's still recovering. That's exactly when discipline matters most, Linda snapped, her voice growing sharper. If she learns now, she'll handle it better in the future. You can't go easy on her. Tom hesitated, but then, to my horror, he agreed. Maybe you're right, Mom, maybe Sophie does need to toughen up. Exactly, Linda nodded, pushing Tom toward me. Show her this won't be tolerated. Before I could react, Tom raised his hand and struck my cheek. The sound echoed through the room, a brutal reminder that a line had been crossed. I held our son close, his cries mixing with my own heartbreak. Tom, what have you done? I whispered through tears. The physical pain was nothing compared to the crushing weight of betrayal. This is for your own good. Sophia, you need to learn, Tom said, his voice empty, avoiding my gaze. The room grew still, save for the soft whimpers of my son. Tom glanced at me, a mix of frustration and shame painting his face, while Linda stood in the background, her expression unreadable but her stance unwavering. What was meant to be a supportive visit had spiraled into an attack on my parenting and my self-worth. As Linda made her way to the door, she whispered something to Tom. I couldn't catch it all, but her condescending tone and the way Tom's lips tightened told me it was far from supportive. That night, as I cradled my son, a sense of dread settled over me. The family that was supposed to uplift me now felt more like a courtroom where I was constantly judged. The sting on my cheek and the ache in my heart only solidified what I needed to do. For my sake and for my child, I needed a way out. The house, once my home, now felt like a prison, with Tom and Linda as the jailers. After Tom had slapped me, under Linda's toxic influence, I couldn't bear to sleep next to him, not with my son in my arms. I retreated to the nursery, the one place that had become my refuge. As I rocked my son back to sleep, the day's events replayed in my mind. Each replay sharpened my resolve. By morning, when Tom left for work and Linda disappeared into her own world, I picked up the phone. Jessica? I said when she answered, my voice trembling. It's me. I need that help you offered. Sophia, say no more. I'll be there today with the truck. We'll figure out the rest later, Jessica replied, her voice strong and comforting. Our plan was simple but daring. I would pack everything I could during the day, just the essentials for my son and me. Jessica would help me move everything to her place before Tom returned. I couldn't risk confronting him. I knew he'd try to pull me back with apologies, or worse, Linda's manipulations might drag me under again. As I packed, every baby toy and piece of clothing weighed heavy with memories and regrets. But the echo of Tom's slap and the coldness in Linda's eyes were all the reminders I needed that staying wasn't an option. By late afternoon, most of our belongings were stowed in boxes, hidden in the garage. Jessica arrived just as the sun began to set, a ray of hope on one of the darkest days of my life. Ready? She asked, taking in the scene of my life reduced to packed boxes. As ready as I'll ever be, I said, holding my son close. We moved swiftly, packing the truck with quiet determination. The nursery, my safe haven, was the last room we cleared. I took a moment to breathe, a silent farewell to the life I once dreamed of building with Tom. As I drove away, I watched the house shrink in the rearview mirror, a chapter closing with a heart heavy yet filled with hope. My baby slept soundly in the backseat, blissfully unaware of the shift but finally safe. This was the first night of our new life, one free from fear and manipulation. At Jessica's place, the contrast to the oppressive atmosphere of my former home couldn't have been clearer. Here, in this sanctuary of peace and support, my resolve only grew. I wasn't just planning to escape, I was preparing to expose Tom and Linda for who they truly were. ensuring they couldn't manipulate the story to their advantage or hurt anyone else again. I started subtly, reconnecting with family and friends under the pretense of casual conversations. As we talked, I began recording any mentions of Linda's controlling behavior or Tom's strange obedience to her. Some people were hesitant, but many had no idea how deep Linda's manipulation ran. Over time, these small pieces of evidence formed a bigger picture. I gathered texts, voicemails, and recorded calls. The most damning piece was a video I captured of Linda instructing Tom on how to control me. Her words a chilling reminder that this was about power, not care. With everything ready, I chose a family gathering at Tom's sister's anniversary party as the place for the confrontation. It was neutral ground, with enough relatives present, some of whom had quietly expressed discomfort with Linda's dominance. On the day of the event, tension gripped me. I arrived with Jessica, who had promised to stand by me. The usual greetings were stiff, and I could feel the undercurrent of unease, as whispers of Tom and Linda's recent behavior had spread through the family. After the initial pleasantries, I stood up, hands trembling but voice steady. "There's something important I need to share with all of you today," I began, feeling the weight of every gaze in the room. "This is about Tom and his mother, Linda, and how their actions have affected not just me and my son, but the entire family." Tom's face paled, panic flashing in his eyes as he tried to cut me off. "Sophia, we don't need to do this here." But I didn't stop. I took out my phone and connected it to the Bluetooth speaker. "This isn't just a personal issue," I said, and hit play. The room went dead silent as Linda's voice filled the air. Her cold directives, Tom's hesitant agreements, their discussions on how to correct me. The reactions ranged from disbelief to disgust. Tom's aunt, who had always been supportive, looked utterly betrayed. "Linda, is this true?" she asked, her voice thick with disappointment. "Were you forcing Tom to do all this?" Linda's face contorted with fury, her voice tight with denial. "It's all out of context." But Tom's cousin, usually a quiet observer, stood up and spoke. "No, it's not. We've all seen signs of this for years. We just didn't want to admit it." The room erupted. Relatives began sharing their own stories, small moments they had overlooked. Now seeing the full scope of Linda's manipulation, Tom sat there, ashen and silent, as he began to see the extent of the web his mother had spun around him. The family gathering transformed into a reckoning, with Linda's influence being picked apart, piece by piece. As the family argued, I felt the weight on my shoulders finally lift. The truth was no longer just mine to bear, it was out in the open for everyone to see. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the family's realization was stark and sobering. They had all been under Linda's control in some way, and the shock was palpable as they came to terms with it. For me, walking away from Tom was a painful but necessary step toward reclaiming my life. As the family gathering dispersed, the weight of my decision finally sank in. I gathered my son, who remained blissfully unaware of the chaos surrounding him, and with one last glance at the family home, I stepped into the unknown. Tom stood there, watching us go, his eyes filled with sorrow and resignation. His voice, once so familiar, was now a distant whisper as he murmured a weak goodbye. But it was Linda who faced the harsher reality. The family she had once controlled so tightly was now turning away from her, each member grappling with their own sense of betrayal. The blame for the fractures in the family rested squarely on her shoulders. Her attempts to reclaim control were ignored, the damage done by the evidence and confessions at the gathering far too great. In the weeks that followed, Tom reached out repeatedly, sending a mixture of apologies, pleas for forgiveness, and promises of change. But the memory of his raised hand and the influence of his mother behind his actions were insurmountable barriers. The trust was broken beyond repair, and with it, the foundation of our marriage crumbled. I found refuge in a small apartment far from the neighborhood I once called home, a place where my past wasn't known. Jessica remained my rock, helping me navigate this new chapter. My days became filled with the simple routines of caring for my son and rebuilding a life free from the shadows of manipulation. Healing was slow and at times, painful. Some days, the weight of everything threatened to overwhelm me, but the freedom to make my own choices without fear kept me moving forward. I started therapy and joined support groups for single mothers, slowly piecing myself back together into someone stronger, more resilient. My son's laughter became my compass, guiding me through the darkest moments. His milestones, his first steps, his words, became the bright spots that lit up my path. As time passed, so did my confidence. Months became a year, and I found myself not just surviving, but thriving. One evening, as I tucked my son into bed in our cozy apartment, walls covered with his drawings and toys scattered around, I took a moment to reflect. The pain of the past still lingered, But it had become just a shadow, fading in the light of this new beginning. The love and support I found in my friends, and most of all in my son, had woven a safety net that caught me on the hardest days. Sitting down with a cup of tea, I realized I was finally ready to share my story. I started a blog, a space to talk about my experiences, to connect with others who might be battling their own demons of manipulation and abuse. Each post became a step away from the victim I had once been and a step closer to the advocate I was becoming. As I close this chapter of my story, I want to leave you all with a question. Is it truly possible to break free from manipulative family dynamics? Or do their shadows linger with us forever? Share your thoughts, and let's start a conversation. The atmosphere was alive with music and laughter, the ideal backdrop for what was meant to be the happiest day of my life. I'm Linda, standing there in my white gown, feeling like a princess, but that illusion shattered in an instant. Linda, dear, could you come here for a moment? My mother-in-law's voice sliced through the festive air with its sharp edge. I excused myself from my friends and approached her, noticing the rigidity in her posture and the strained smile on her face. What is it, Mrs. Dalton? I asked, striving to keep my voice calm. It's about the way you look at me, Linda. I can recognize a look of contempt when I see one. I'm your husband's mother, and I deserve respect, not disdain. Her words, thick with accusation, caught me off guard. Mrs. Dalton, I assure you, you're mistaken. I hold nothing but respect for you, I responded, my confusion growing. Respect? Ha, I've seen the way you roll your eyes and hear your little sighs. Do you think I'm blind? You've turned my own son against me. Her voice rose, attracting the attention of nearby guests. Mom, what's going on here? My husband, Mark, appeared, his face clouded with concern. Your wife, she's been disrespectful, always looking down on me, and today, of all days, she's been the worst. Mrs. Dalton's voice quivered, tears brimming in her eyes. Linda, is this true? Mark's gaze bore into me, his face a mix of disbelief and growing anger. No, it's not true. I haven't done anything of the sort, I said firmly, a wave of injustice swelling inside me. She's lying. Mark, I'm your mother. Would I lie to you? Mrs. Dalton sobbed, clinging to his arm in a display that felt unreal. Mark's hand came up and struck my cheek, the slap ringing out in the sudden hush of the room. I stood there, my hand pressed to my stinging cheek, while the guests stared in stunned silence. How could you? I whispered, not to Mark or Mrs. Dalton, but to the universe that had allowed this to unfold. Linda, I didn't mean, Mark stammered, his anger melting into confusion and regret. No, you've shown me exactly who you are, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. Turning to face the crowd, I addressed them directly. I'm sorry you had to witness this. Please, continue with the celebration. I need a moment alone. As I walked away, the whispers began, but I held my head high. This wasn't the end but the beginning of something new. A plan began to form in my mind, a plan for justice. This humiliation would not go unanswered. In the privacy of the bridal suite, I allowed myself a moment of vulnerability, tears streaming down my face. But these weren't just tears of sorrow, they were tears of resolve. I was determined not to be a victim but to emerge as a victor. After the wedding fiasco, I knew I needed to act. The first step was to secure undeniable evidence. I contacted Mr. Grayson, a private investigator renowned for his discretion and thoroughness. Mr. Grayson, I need your help. My husband Mark and his mother have been, let's say, less than kind. Understood. Linda, what exactly are we looking for? I need evidence of their behavior. Anything that shows a pattern of emotional, financial, or legal abuse. Consider it done. I'll start with surveillance and background checks. I'll dig into their pasts, finances, everything. With my mission clear, I began documenting every conversation with Mark and his mother, every phone call, every interaction. I needed all the evidence I could gather. Amidst this, I found comfort in my friend Sarah. Sarah, I don't know how I'd get through this without you. You don't have to go through it alone. Linda, I'm here for you, always. So, what's the plan? I'm collecting evidence. Mr. Grayson is helping, too. I want to expose them for who they really are. Be careful, Linda, they won't see this coming, and they'll be furious. I know, but I can't let them get away with it. As weeks went by, the evidence began to accumulate, calls where Mark's tone was aggressive and belittling, financial records showing his mother's tight control over his assets, and suspicious transactions suggesting fraud. One evening, Sarah and I reviewed the findings. Look at this, Sarah. These bank statements, large sums of money are being moved, but to where? And these emails, they're planning something, but what? We need to connect the dots. This isn't just emotional abuse, it's a web of deceit and manipulation. Linda, we're onto something significant, Sarah said, her eyes widening with realization. The more I delve into the evidence, the clearer it becomes. Mark and his mother aren't just toxic, they're involved in deeply unethical, possibly illegal activities. Sarah, I think they're embezzling funds from Mark's company. These documents, they're incriminating. Linda, this is serious. You need to be careful. They won't react well to being exposed. I understand, but I can't back down. Not now. The evidence is too compelling, not just of their cruelty but of their criminal activities. It's time to make a plan to bring them to justice and reclaim my life. Linda, exposing them publicly is risky, but if anyone can pull it off, it's you. With Sarah's support and the evidence securely in hand, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore, I was fighting for justice. The next step was clear. I needed to shine a light on their actions. It was time for everyone to see Mark and his mother for who they truly were. I arranged an event under the pretense of a major announcement, inviting friends, family, and, crucially, a few media contacts. The venue was elegant, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Thank you all for coming. I know you're eager to hear the big news. I began, my voice steady and my demeanor composed. Mark and Mrs. Dalton stood beside me, their smiles wide and their expressions blissfully unaware of the upheaval about to unfold. Linda, darling, we're so proud of you. Whatever you have to say, we're behind you, Mark said, his voice dripping with feigned sincerity. I've gathered you all here to reveal some crucial truths about my marriage and the Dalton family. I paused, scanning the crowd's faces for their reactions. Truths? Linda, what are you talking about? Mrs. Dalton's voice quivered, a mixture of confusion and fear evident. I'm talking about the abuse, the lies, and the illegal activities that have been hidden behind closed doors. The room fell into a tense silence. Linda, have you lost your mind? Mark's face turned a deep shade of red, his anger barely contained. Quite the opposite, Mark. I've never been more clear-headed or certain about what needs to be done. I gestured to the screen behind me, where a video began to play. It was a recording of one of their heated, abusive conversations. The crowd gasped, whispers growing louder. Mrs. Dalton's face went pale, her hands shaking. This is just the beginning. These documents reveal financial irregularities, embezzlement, and fraud. I held up a folder filled with incriminating evidence. You can't do this, Linda. You're ruining everything. Mark's voice was a blend of desperation and threat. I'm not ruining anything. I'm revealing the truth, a truth that everyone needs to hear. The media personnel started snapping photos, capturing every moment of the dramatic revelation. Linda, please, let's handle this privately. Mrs. Dalton's voice was a mere whisper, her facade of control shattered. No, Mrs. Dalton, no more private discussions. The time for hiding is over. As I continued to present more evidence, the crowd's reactions ranged from shock to disbelief. Some guests shook their heads, while others whispered among themselves. Mark and Mrs. Dalton stood frozen, their veneer of respectability crumbling. This is my story, a story of surviving abuse and standing up against injustice. I refuse to be a victim any longer. The event concluded with a flurry of activity. The media swarmed, asking questions, while many guests offered words of support and admiration for my courage. As I walked away from the podium, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had done it. I had exposed them. With composure and resolve, it was a moment of triumph, a moment where I reclaimed my power and my voice. The courtroom was stark and imposing, an appropriate stage for the final act of my journey. As I sat there, a mix of nervousness and determination swirling inside me, my lawyer beside me, I noted how unsettled Mark and Mrs. Dalton appeared across the room. Your Honor, we are here to present the case against Mark and Mrs. Dalton, not just for a divorce, but for years of emotional and financial abuse. My lawyer began, his voice steady and confident. Linda, you can't win this. You're going too far. Mark's desperate whisper reached me from across the room. This isn't about winning, Mark. It's about justice. It's about showing the world who you really are, I said, my voice calm but resolute. The trial continued with my lawyer presenting the evidence methodically, the recordings, the financial documents, everything that illustrated the true nature of the life I had endured. Your Honor, as you can see, the evidence is overwhelming. We seek not only a divorce but also appropriate legal action for the wrongs committed by the defendants. Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. Linda is exaggerating. Mrs. Dalton's plea sounded hollow, even to her own ears. Exaggerating? The evidence speaks for itself. You can't hide from the truth any longer, I countered, directing my words at both Mark and Mrs. Dalton, a final affirmation of my stand against them. After reviewing the evidence and hearing the testimonies, the judge delivered her ruling. In light of the overwhelming evidence, I grant the divorce and order legal actions against Mark and Mrs. Dalton for their conduct. As the gavel fell, a profound sense of vindication washed over me. I had done it. I had stood up to them and emerged victorious. With the legal battles concluded, I began a new chapter of my life, a chapter dedicated to healing and rebuilding. I found a serene, small home in the countryside, a stark contrast to the tumult of my previous life. Sitting on the porch of my new house, a warm cup of tea in hand, I gazed at the peaceful view before me. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, birds sang in the distance, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. This was it, a new beginning, a life free from deceit, manipulation, and pain. My journey had been arduous, but it was worth it. I had not only survived, I had triumphed. I had found my strength, reclaimed my voice, and now I was finally free. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the horizon, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape, a future filled with hope, healing, and happiness. This was my story of triumph, a story of a woman who refused to be silenced, who stood tall against all odds. This was my closure, my victory. The story of Linda's journey had come to a close. Do you believe Linda's decision to publicly expose and legally confront her husband and his mother was the best course of action? Could there have been a different way to handle such a situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more compelling narratives. Your support helps us bring more stories to life. Hey everyone, I'm Olivia. I'm 17, top of my class, and totally obsessed with art and history. My room? Basically a museum of Roman architecture posters and Renaissance paintings. Yeah, I'm that kid. Olivia, dinner's ready. Mom's voice echoed from downstairs. I sighed, reluctantly setting aside my sketchbook. Another family dinner. Another opportunity to feel like the invisible child. As I entered the dining room, my sister Megan was already there, phone glued to her hand, probably texting one of her latest boyfriends. How was your day, Megan? Mom asked, as if I didn't exist. Boring. Mr. Johnson gave me detention again. He's the worst, Megan complained. Dad jumped in. Don't worry, sweetie, we'll talk to the principal about that teacher. I had to bite back an eye roll. Megan skips class, lands in detention, and somehow it's the teacher's fault? Typical. And how about you, Olivia? Anything exciting happened today? Grandpa asked, winking at me. Finally, someone remembered I was here. Actually, yeah, I began, smiling. I got an A on my Italian test. That's nice, dear, Mom cut in, barely acknowledging me before turning right back to Megan. So, about your cheerleading competition this weekend. And just like that, I was invisible again. But it was okay, I still had my grandparents, they got me. Later that night, I was sitting in my room, counting my Rome fund jar. Just $200 more, I whispered. I'm so close. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Grandma peeked her head in. Come in, I called, quickly tucking the jar away. Grandma entered, a gentle smile on her face. Olivia, sweetheart, your grandpa and I have something for you. My heart pounded in my chest. Could it be? No way. Grandpa appeared, holding an envelope. We know how hard you've been working and how much you love Italy, he said, handing it to me. My hands shook as I opened it, and when I saw what was inside, I nearly fainted. 2 tickets, to Rome. Oh my God, is this real? Am I dreaming? Grandma laughed softly. It's very real, dear, you've earned it. I jumped up, hugging them both. Thank you, thank you, thank you, I can't believe it. Of course, right on cue, Megan stormed in. What's all the excitement about? I couldn't contain my joy. Grandma and Grandpa got me tickets to Rome, for graduation. Megan's face twisted. What? That's not fair. I'm the one who needs a vacation after all the stress I've been under. But for once, I didn't let her negativity affect me. I have so much planning to do. There's so much to see, I babbled excitedly, completely ignoring Megan's sulking. My parents stood in the doorway, their expressions less than thrilled, but honestly, I didn't care. For the first time, something incredible was happening to me, and nothing could ruin it. The next morning, I woke up with the tickets safely tucked under my pillow. As I got ready for school, I couldn't stop smiling. "Olivia, come downstairs, please," Mom called, her tone a little too serious. I rushed down, expecting to talk about my trip plans. Instead, I found my family sitting in the living room, all with grim expressions. "What's going on?" I asked, my excitement fading. Dad cleared his throat. "We've been thinking about the Rome tickets." I beamed. "Yeah, isn't it awesome? I can't wait to. We think it would be better if Megan went instead." Mom cut me off. My world came to a grinding halt. "What?" "Megan's been under a lot of stress," Dad said, as if that made it okay. "She could really use this trip." I turned to my grandparents, desperate for support. Their shocked expressions matched my own. "But those were my tickets," I protested. "Grandma and Grandpa gave them to me." Megan smirked. "Don't be selfish, Olivia. I need this more than you." Grandpa finally spoke up, his voice stern. "That's not fair. We gave those tickets to Olivia as a reward for her hard work." Mom sighed, clearly exasperated. "Dad, you don't understand. Megan's struggling. This trip could really help her." "And what about Olivia?" Grandma retorted. "What about her dreams?" Dad waved it off. "She'll be fine. Olivia's always fine." The room erupted into a full-blown argument, voices rising and accusations flying. I just stood there, numb, watching my dream fall apart in front of me. "Fine," I whispered, barely able to speak. "Take the stupid tickets." I spun around and bolted upstairs, slamming the door behind me. Tears burned in my eyes as I collapsed onto my bed. How could they do this to me? The days that followed blurred together. I dragged myself through school, dodged family dinners, and stayed locked in my room, lost in my thoughts. One afternoon, while mindlessly scrolling on my phone, I overheard a conversation between my parents from their bedroom. "We can't keep doing this, John," Mom said, her voice tense. "The credit cards are maxed out. The bank's breathing down our necks about the mortgage." "I know," Dad replied, "but we can't let Megan's mistakes destroy her future." My ears perked up. "Mistakes? What mistakes?" "Maybe we dip into Olivia's college fund again." I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. "My college fund? They've been using my money?" Suddenly, it all made sense. The new car Megan got, the lavish cheerleading camps, her endless shopping sprees. I felt sick. They'd been stealing from me to cover for Megan's screw-ups. That night, I tossed and turned, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? How much of my money had they drained? And, most importantly, what was I going to do about it? Lying there in the dark, I started to form a plan. If they thought they could walk all over me, they were wrong. "Two can play at this game," I muttered under my breath. The next morning, I put on a cheerful face and sat down for breakfast. Megan was chattering away about her upcoming Rome trip. "I'm thinking of extending my stay," she bragged. "Maybe swing by Paris while I'm at it." Mom and Dad exchanged nervous looks, but I kept quiet, storing the information away. As I headed out for school, I made a detour. It was time to visit the bank and get some answers about my accounts. The game was on, and this time, I was playing to win. The trip to the bank was eye-opening, to say the least. My college fund had been bled dry. It was time to bring in reinforcements. "Jake, I need your help," I said, cornering my best friend at his locker. He looked up, concerned. "What's going on, Liv? You look like you've seen a ghost." I leaned in, lowering my voice. "Jake, I need your help. I want you to hack into my parents' financial records." Jake's eyes widened, taken aback. "Whoa, that's serious. What's going on?" I didn't hold back, telling him everything. The Rome tickets, the conversation I overheard, the missing college fund. The more I talked, the darker Jake's expression grew. After a long pause, he finally said, "All right, I'm in. Meet me in the library after school. We'll get to the bottom of this." For the next week, Jake and I spent every spare moment poring over my family's finances. Each new discovery was worse than the last. "Look at this." Jake pointed to his laptop screen, scrolling through the data. "Your dad's been siphoning money from the family business for years." I leaned closer, studying the numbers. "But where's it all going?" Jake opened another tab and traced the transactions. Most of it's covering Megan's expenses, unpaid credit cards, car payments, even bail money. Bail money? My heart sank. What's she gotten into? As we continued digging, the situation became clearer, and far more grim. My dad had been cooking the books, taking out questionable loans, and even getting involved in shady side businesses to fund Megan's lifestyle and cover the family's growing debt. This is a mess, I whispered, running my hands through my hair. What am I supposed to do with this? Jake looked at me, his expression serious. You know what you have to do. Live. I didn't know, but the idea of turning my parents in felt like a punch to the gut. That night, I barely slept, tossing and turning as I weighed my options. On one hand, they were my family. On the other, they'd stolen from me, lied to me, and broken the law. By morning, I knew what had to be done. The first step was to confront my grandparents. I went to them, laid out everything Jake and I had uncovered. I can't believe this, Grandma whispered, tears welling in her eyes. How could they do this to you? Grandpa's expression was harder, his lips pressed into a thin line. What do you need from us, Olivia? Your support, I said, and possibly a place to stay when things go down. They didn't hesitate to agree. With them on my side, I turned to someone else I trusted, Ms. Rodriguez, my favorite teacher. She had always believed in me, and I needed an adult outside of the family to help me navigate this. This is very serious, Olivia, she said after I explained everything. Are you absolutely sure you want to go through with this? I nodded firmly. I have to, for my own future, and for Megan too. This can't continue. Ms. Rodriguez sighed. All right, I'll help however I can. With my allies in place, Jake and I began planning our next move. We need solid evidence, Jake said, scribbling notes in his notebook, something that will be undeniable. I thought for a moment. The family reunion next month. Dad's business partners will be there. Everyone will. Jake's eyes lit up. Perfect. We can set up hidden cameras. Maybe even catch them talking about the shady deals. If we time it right, they'll incriminate themselves. As we worked through the details, a mix of adrenaline and dread swirled in my gut. This was really happening, and there was no turning back now. Are you all right? Jake asked, his voice soft with concern as he caught my tense expression. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what was about to unfold. Yeah, it's just, once we do this, there's no going back. Everything will change. Jake gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. Sometimes change is the only way forward. You've got this. Liv. I nodded, steadying myself. The countdown to the family reunion, and the most pivotal moment of my life, had officially begun. The day arrived, and my heart pounded in my chest. Jake and I had spent weeks preparing for this, laying the groundwork and ensuring that every hidden camera was set. There was no room for error. As relatives and Dad's business partners streamed into the house, I forced a smile. Hey, Uncle Bob, how's the golf game going? I asked, though my mind was elsewhere, laser-focused on what was about to happen. In the living room, Megan was in full bragging mode, holding everyone's attention as she went on and on about her Rome trip. It's going to be incredible. I might stay a whole month, she gushed, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. I glanced at Mom and Dad, noting the uneasy looks they exchanged. It was time. I cleared my throat and raised my glass. I'd like to make a toast, to family and to the truth. As I spoke, I caught Jake's eye. He gave a small nod and hit play on his laptop. The TV screen flickered to life, displaying incriminating financial records and snippets of recorded conversations. Dad's face drained of all color. What is this? He stammered, eyes wide with panic. This, I said, my voice steady though my hands trembled, is the truth about where all of our family's money has been going. The room erupted. Dad's business partners started shouting, demanding answers, while Aunt Susan broke down in tears. Megan, meanwhile, was spiraling into a full-blown meltdown. You can't do this to me, she shrieked. How am I supposed to pay for my DUI lawyer now? Suddenly, the room fell into a stunned silence. DUI? Mom turned to Megan, her voice sharp with shock. What do you mean, DUI? Megan's eyes widened in horror, realizing she'd just outed herself. I mean, it's not like that, she stammered, but it was too late. The truth had unraveled, and with every word, the weight of her actions crushed any hope of a cover-up. She admitted to everything, the drunk driving, the shoplifting, the credit card fraud. Each confession landed like a hammer, and with each one, Mom and Dad seemed to age 10 years in mere moments. Then, faintly at first, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Ms. Rodriguez had come through, tipping off the authorities right on cue. As police officers filed into the room, Reading charges and placing handcuffs on both Dad and Megan, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. This was justice, but it also marked the end of the family I had once known. Grandpa wrapped his arm around me, his voice soft but proud. "You did the right thing, Olivia. We're so proud of you." The months that followed were a blur of courtrooms and legal battles. Dad and Megan both faced serious charges, while Mom was given probation for her lesser involvement. Through it all, my grandparents were my anchor, guiding me through the chaos. One evening, as we sat together after another long day, Grandma placed her hand gently on mine. "Olivia," she began, her voice warm and full of love, "how would you feel about us becoming your legal guardians?" I pulled Grandma into a tight embrace, tears welling in my eyes. "I'd love that." As things began to settle, an unexpected turn of events unfolded. The judge ruled that all the stolen funds, including my college fund, be returned, and the Rome tickets, they were mine once again. So that summer, instead of dwelling on what I'd lost, I found myself wandering the Roman Forum with my grandparents, savoring gelato. "To new beginnings," Grandpa said, lifting his cone in a toast. "To justice and gelato," I replied with a wide grin. A few years have passed, and my life has transformed significantly. I'm now in my junior year at a leading art school, interning at a renowned gallery, and preparing for my first solo exhibition next month. Meanwhile, Dad is serving his sentence, Mom is working a minimum wage job, and Megan, last I heard, is grappling with community college, finally confronting the fallout from her actions. As for me, I'm planning my next adventure, a trip to Italy to pursue my master's in Florence. Sometimes, losing one dream can lead to an even greater opportunity. So, that's my story. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't without pain, but standing up for yourself can lead to powerful, transformative change. I'd love to hear from you. If you were in Olivia's position, would you have exposed your family's crimes, knowing it could tear them apart and bring legal consequences? Or would you have stayed silent to protect them, even if it meant sacrificing your own future? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could offer valuable insight to others facing similar ethical dilemmas. If this story of justice and personal triumph inspired you, don't forget to hit that like button. For more stories of revenge and personal victories, subscribe to our channel.